Jason Anderson. If you're listening, I did ask Andrew about the hoodies under suits. Yeah, baby. Had the stones to do it. I was nervous. I did preface it with a please don't kick my ass, Andrew. He is a large human being. But I did. So those interviews will come your way later on in the show. But let's get into it. Jack Johnson is down there in the warmth away from the impeding snowstorm. Jack's down there at Surprise for spring training with the Royals. Jack, how you doing?
Pretty good, and no, it's not warm at all here. It's a pretty crisp 55.
Oh, bleep you!
Right now.
Oh, bleep you, guy! Come on, yeah. I would shave Dylan's beard for 50s.
Take you a long time, but it'll probably be 70, 75 here in about 15 minutes, is the way it usually goes in Arizona.
Oh man, you son of a! And by the way, that might break the razor trying to shave Dylan's beard. The razor's not safe. All right, but let's get into it. You've been there. You got there, what, was it Saturday night or Sunday?
Saturday night. Yep, Saturday night. Got to the field here early yesterday. They had the last little bit of guys trickling in, but today's the first full squad workout, so everybody's here. Everybody you could possibly mention was in the clubhouse, and they're getting ready to head off to the field right now for practice.
Before we talk about what is happening at spring training, all that stuff, I think the biggest news over the weekend was Cole Reagan's signing that, I guess it's an extension, right? But basically it bought out the arbitration years. It was on the higher end of what he would have received, right? Almost the max of what he would have received, correct, if he were to go to arbitration. Is this the Royals doing right by their guy? Is this a situation that maybe, Cole, you're surprised that he didn't try and sign a longer 5-year deal? What was your takeaway here with the Cole Reagan signing here?
It's a good faith deal. It's a win for both sides involved. As you brought up, this is a little bit of a pay bump for him. He wasn't going anywhere over the next 3 years, but they certainly felt like after what he did last year, becoming an ace, becoming a Cy Young finalist, being an all-star, that he was more deserving than what he was making. We see it in baseball from time to time that owners and GMs may take advantage of that and say, yeah, you're going to continue to be an all-star for us, you're going to be a main piece of this team, but we're not going to pay you until we have to pay you. And the Royals didn't want to operate that way. This showed their trust in him, and at the same time, it showed that they also need to see one more year of that. It felt unlikely that after 1 year in the big leagues, putting together a season like that they would go out there and give him a 5-6 year deal worth north of $20 million. Because of maybe a little bit of the injury history in the past, because of not being able to truly put it together in Texas. And I'm not saying they view him as a guy that could revert back to that. But in baseball, it's always the unknown. We see this with contracts all the time, where they sometimes overreact to a great season, maybe it be a rookie season, or you sign a guy in free agency and immediately want to extend him after 1 year. But with Cole Reagan's, it was to show him, we believe in you, we feel like you're still our ace, but if you do this one more time, if you become a 200 strikeout guy again, you're another all-star, you're a Cy Young finalist, I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to circle back to this next offseason and try to get a longer extension done with more money involved. So even though they called it an extension, it's not really one because it's not extending the amount of years he would have been here. It's more of a pay bump is what I would like to call it.
Yeah, but I love it for the Royals' perspective, taking care of your guy, and for Cole Reagan's. This way you don't have to even worry about arbitration. Love the win-win right there for KC and Cole. Let's get into the biggest takeaways you have seen so far in Surprise. Obviously, you said this is really the big first day for everyone down there. Any takeaways, though, so far from over the weekend heading into this morning?
Yeah, sometimes you get to have a chance to stumble upon someone really cool. One of the back fields they have here, there's about 3 or 4 fields they're all practicing on. You don't always recognize everybody out there, but there definitely are a few that come to mind. And yesterday, it felt like the star of the show was more so the younger guys, Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione. Jack Caglione showed up for the first time yesterday, and the ball just sounds different coming off his bat. I was over at one of the fields watching Carter Jensen. He cleared right center, which here in Arizona, it's about 379, I believe. Sometimes some of the field dimensions are closer to 400 out there. It's pretty deep out there, though the ball carries a little bit, but he crushed it. He's got mammoth power, and that's something that a lot of Royals fans are going to come to know about him if you already weren't familiar with the local kid. He's got tremendous power. But Jack Caglione, he shows up. Andy Rogers had a video on it yesterday. Yeah, that it just doesn't sound human coming off of his bat. And he is a large human being. Him walking around the complex, that's the fun part about spring training, is it feels like you're just walking around one of the typical recreational complexes back home. You're so up and close and personal to a lot of these guys. You're standing right next to them in the clubhouse. And for a guy like him, yeah, if you thought he looked like a large human being at Florida or even at the minor league level, if you got to go see him last year in Quad Cities, I'm not even sure it does it justice if you see him on TV, because this is a big dude. And he was hitting to all fields, line drives, and it just sounded even more devastating than a cannon shot. We hear that all the time with guys taking BP and hitting the ball hard. And you're like, it sounds like a cannon shot. That sounds super loud coming off the bat. I'll tell you, it's different with him. It really is different, and I'm hoping to get over there and watch longer than a few minutes of his BP today, because that is something to behold out here. He certainly is the one raising everybody's eyebrows in camp.
What is the timeline for Jack Caglione? It sounds like, and maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've at least seen so far, it sounds like pitching is so far down the list. Obviously, he was drafted as the Jack Tawney, right? He was going to do both pitch and play the field, but looks like the bat is just too good, so far advanced. Any thoughts that you think that he still might pitch at all? And two, chance you see him at all this season again? I think we'd all be beyond surprised if he was on the opening day roster, but towards the end of the year, any chance we see Jack in the big leagues?
There's a real-world possibility that could happen, and a lot's going to need to go right, but I'm not going to rule it out at all. I mean, when they drafted him, being a college hitter and as polished as a college hitter as he was, they had some belief that going into 2025 there could be a scenario in which he's playing in the big leagues, and that's not a stretch anymore in the MLB. We saw it with Wyatt Langford in Texas, where they didn't waste any time. It's not that you need to manipulate service time or anything like that. If a president of baseball operations believe that guy can help the big league roster, they're going to call him up. And we got reports a few months ago, it was right around the time the Arizona Fall League was ending, that if he starts to hit really well in AA and AAA, they're going to get him some outfield work, because he's not going to come up here to play first base in 2025 because Vinny Pasquantino's there, and that's the only position that Vinny can play other than DH. So if Jack is going to come up in 2025, he's going to have to learn one of the corner outfield spots, and I'm sure he's going to be able to do it. But there is that trust and belief there. I don't know if I would lock it in at this point. Like, that wouldn't be my prediction that he's going to be up in 2025. But if he goes down there to Northwest Arkansas and maybe at some point to Omaha this year, and he's hitting 330 and 340, and he cuts down on the swing and miss a little bit, he will be in Kansas City. They're not going to have him in AAA crushing the ball, having all types of power and not being overmatched by anybody at the minor league level, and say, well, you're still young and we need to see it for a full season. If he can help them out in a playoff run, he's going to be up here. But still, my guess would be if it's not this year, it would be very early on in 2026, because a lot of those traits, a lot of those tools, they're already there. What everybody's going to be looking for is, can he cut down on the strikeout numbers? He didn't have crazy strikeout numbers at Florida, mainly because a lot of college pitchers were scared to throw to him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can hit the ball 515 feet and you can cover so much of the plate, as I said, he's a mammoth of a human being. He's massive. So he's covering the entirety of the zone. He can hit to all fields, and he had a great walk rate because guys were throwing around him, and they couldn't really strike him out because he was able to ambush a lot of those pitchers. But to your question, the expectations should be very high for him. There is a world in which he's up here in 2025. My guess, though, would be if he has a typical progression through the minor league level, going through the ups and downs, I would more so count on 2026.
Yeah, he just turned 22 8 days ago, so he is still very, very young. Again, do you think we'll see a glove? You mentioned if things go well with the bat, he might pick up an outfield glove for the corner outfield spot. So I guess, one, no more pitching, I would assume. And then two, will we see an outfield glove? At least keep us updated if you do see an outfield glove down there in Surprise.
You know, I had a really good conversation yesterday with Jalen Thompson, who covers the team for the KC Star, and we were going over, these options. I was asking the same questions, right? Are they going to go after an outfield bat? All the teams here now feels unlikely that J.J. Bacola is going to want to bring in somebody at the tail end of camp, because at that point in free agency, that guy hasn't been practicing with the team or has had spring training of any sort of effect. But what we kind of landed on was that there's a lot of different players on this team that can move around. And I say this for fans out there going, man, they're going to run it back with Melendez in left and Isbell in center and Hunter Renfroe in right. Even if they don't bring in a bat, I don't see it happening that way at all. And the cool part about it is a lot of it's going to come down to, can Michael Garcia play center field? That's going to be something we see this spring, is can he make that transition to the outfield, as long as play the infield as well. He might be one of those super utility guys. But you think about it, if he can play the outfield, right, he can platoon with Kyle Isbell, well, that allows them to move Jonathan India over to third base and keep Michael Massey at second, because Massey is a little bit better of a defender over there. And I talked with Jonathan India this morning, and he said he's definitely going to be getting some infield work in. That screams to me second base and third base, because he's not going to be playing first base and short. And he also said, I'll get some outfield work in as well. But I almost wonder if the Royals' best course of action would be putting somebody as athletic as Michael Garcia, because keep in mind, he didn't play third base before he got up to Kansas City, and then went on to be one of the better defenders at third base. We saw him in right field in the Houston series in September, or might have been August last year, and handled himself just fine. So he's got the ability. He's athletic enough, and he can track down fly balls. And if he does that, well, now you got a platoon situation out there in center field, and you can keep Massey and Jonathan India on the infield. You're not having to move one of those guys out to the outfield, which just feels weird to begin with. I don't know if any of those guys would really have a great chance of thriving out there. I feel far more confident that Michael Garcia could have a good chance of thriving in center field, platooning with Kyle Isbell, and then you could have some mixing and matching too with Melendez and Renfroe. I'm not saying that they're not going to bring in a bat, but to think that they're going to have the same three outfielders starting every single game, I don't see it that way at all. There might be a time where India does play second base, Massey's in left field, and Garcia's in center field, and you have Hunter Renfroe in right. That's a very possible scenario this coming regular season. But again, Sterling, a lot of it's going to come down to how those guys look in spring, because if there's one thing you can take away from spring training, it's how some of these guys adapt to playing different positions.
So just real quick, because this is, again, hypotheticals here, but I'm with you. I think Garcia in center makes a lot of sense. Just the athleticism, the defense, all that stuff, it really does. And platooning with Isbell, again, ton of sense. But I guess my question would be, any chance we'd see one of those guys play a corner outfield spot just to bolster the defense? But then it also comes down to, if Garcia is already trying to learn center, the ball reacts differently. Center field, if you're athletic, that's actually easier than left or right, because sometimes left or right, you have a lot more spin on the ball, a lot more of those, hooks and slices off the bat. Any chance we see Garcia play one of the corner outfield spots?
I could see it. He played right field a little bit last year, and that was on the fly. That was a mid-game decision because they had to, due to, I believe, an injury, or the game was already a blowout, and he went out there and handled himself out there. So if you're going to give him the responsibilities of learning center field, you might as well have him at least try a little bit of the corner outfield spots, because in that same conversation we had about Garcia platooning with Kyle Isbell, well, Kyle Isbell is also one of the better defending center fielders in all of baseball. So if you're platooning him, you are losing some great defensive value out there. And if you had Garcia learning one of those corner outfield spots, well, what if he platooned with Melendez out there in left field? Now you have Garcia in left, and you would have Isbell in center. That might be just fine to work with, because Kyle Isbell can cover a lot of ground, and who knows what Garcia would look like. Is he an upgrade defensively over MJ Melendez? I know MJ made strides out there last year. He's certainly got a much stronger arm than Michael and has more experience out there. But Michael is one of those guys that's able to adapt to pretty much any position you put him at. He was at third base, and even though he had experience at second base, we all remember last year, they moved him over there when Paul DeYoung got to the team. And when Massey came back, and they had the DH Massey, so you put Garcia over there. Those are things that are going to be found out sooner rather than later. But to your point, yeah, Kyle Isbell's got great defense out there, and if you were to platoon them, maybe for half of those games you are losing elite defense out there, and that's something I'm not sold the Royals would be willing to do for the entirety of the season. You could certainly see them platoon a little bit, but it wouldn't be every time there's a left-hander on the mound, Garcia's in center. Every time there's a right-hander, Kyle Isbell's going to be out there.
You mentioned Carter Jensen. Obviously, he's down there. He got the invite to big league camp right here. What are expectations and the thought process for Carter Jensen in the Royals organization? Obviously, you have Carter. You also have Blake Mitchell. And there's also, again, we mentioned the outfield could use another bat. One could potentially be a trade piece. But again, Carter is there at big league camp. One, how big is that for him? And two, expectations. Where does he fit into the piece long term for KC?
Yeah, Carter's one of my favorite prospects in the system, mainly because of how he's progressed. Him being a local kid doesn't hurt either. He's just a joy to talk to as well. He's so insightful about the game. And I remember that last year. He was far ahead of his age when talking about the sport and what he was being asked of by the team. He's somebody, too, that is mentioned that, hey, I'll learn any position you need me to. He's great behind the plate, but we also understand that Blake Mitchell is a really great defender there, too. Got a chance to see him a little bit yesterday. So he might need to move other positions. There's people out there that go, man, you've got 3 catchers in the minor league level that are seen as not maybe big-time prospects. Some of them are big-time prospects, but good prospects, we'll call them. You have Mitchell, you have Jensen, and you have Ramon Ramirez, who's still in his early 20s down there. So the obvious answer would be, well, let's trade one of those guys. They're not all going to get up to the big league level and be catchers, right? But I don't see it that way. I feel like Carter Jensen has the most likely shift of those guys that we're talking about, and who knows if Ramon Ramirez turns into anything. He certainly thrived at the very low levels of the minor leagues, but Blake Mitchell's somebody. He's a first-round pick. They have a lot of stock into him, and he's really filled out as well. You know, I remember seeing some film on him last year. He looked a little bit skinnier, but now he's, not as tall as Salvador Perez and not as thick as Salvador Perez. But he's a big kid. Carter Jensen is as well. And that's something that I think goes unnoticed a lot when you're talking about prospects. You'll have some skinnier guys out there. They're a typical 18, 19-year-old kid. They look overmatched. These look like big leaguers. These look like guys that could handle big league pitching. And the approach they have at the plate, it's so advanced. And that's something you want to see from an 18 to 21-year-old prospect. If they've got that mature approach, that professional approach, they're going to have a good opportunity to really thrive at other aspects of the game because you know that part of their game is solid. The walk rate is a big part of it. There haven't been many Royals prospects that truly value it. Blake Mitchell and Carter Jensen both have that. Now they're really channeling that power, and big-time power, I might add. As I brought up, he cleared right center by 50 feet the other day. It wasn't even close. And he did that last year as well when he was a year younger. And to see that type of power, you pair that with the approach. This is a prospect that isn't like usual prospects in the Royals organization. It almost feels like the new age of Royals prospect. And Royals fans should be very excited about him and not be pushing his name for acquiring an outfield bat because these guys, I both believe, with Mitchell and Carter Jensen, are going to be big league contributors in Kansas City sometime soon.
Is there anyone that you're having your eye on that maybe is a little bit under the radar? Not Jensen or Blake Mitchell, but maybe it doesn't even have to be a position player. It could even be a pitcher here, maybe a bullpen arm. Is there someone in particular that you think that maybe is getting not talked about enough, or a guy who might sneak in and actually make the big league roster?
Noah Cameron would be the one, if we even want to call him a sleeper prospect, because he was so good last year between AA Northwest Arkansas and AAA Omaha. And I had a chance to catch about 5 to 10 minutes of his bullpen the other day, and the stuff is a lot better than I anticipated.
Jack, I'm not going to lie. At first, I thought you said you had a chance to catch him for 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive, Jack. They have you down there being a bullpen catcher. Nice.
Yeah, media is not allowed in the field, but I
Shocking.
certainly weaseled my way in there and said, hey, can I catch this guy's devastating slider and not break something in the process of it? But, yeah, he was out there. I was watching his BP, not catching it, and that stuff is legit. Sometimes I don't truly buy into AA and AAA numbers when it comes to pitchers. Might come down to the dimensions of the ballpark they're pitching in. Some leagues are far more hitter-friendly or pitcher-friendly, so it's tough to see. A lot of it comes down to how good does that stuff actually look? And down here in Arizona, I thought Noah Cameron's stuff looked really good. I already thought he was going to be in the big leagues at some point this year. But to me, he sort of moved from that, yeah, I expect him to be up in the big leagues when somebody gets hurt and you need him for a week or so, to now I'm going, man, you might as well keep him down until you call him up and he's there for the long haul. Like, there is a possibility he starts a handful of games for the Royals this year. He might be out of the bullpen if the rotation stays healthy all season long, which is doubtful, of course. But I've got a little bit more faith in him now. People have been talking about him for about the last year or so, and I hadn't had the chance to see him in person. Now that I have, and to see some of those swings he was getting on a handful of guys, that stuff is filthy. That stuff is legit, and I would love today to go out there and see him face a couple of the big league hitters. And even though it's not everything, it's practice at the end of the day. That stuff, it plays well. I'm excited to see more of him in spring training.
2.32 ERA in AAA last year, 3.63 in AA, 25 starts overall for Noah Cameron last year in the minors. Let's take a break, Jack, because I do want to get into the spring training battles and more specifically with the pitching staff, because I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had here, and I think it might take a little longer than the time we have left in the first segment. So we'll take a break, Jack. Let's come back. Let's talk some pitching battles, and maybe Noah Cameron might swing into the conversation here. We'll take a break, come back, more Zone at Sports Radio 810 WHB. from Surprise Royals spring training. All right, Jack, let's get into it. This is going to be a fun conversation because this is the biggest battle. You know, I feel like the corner outfield spots we've talked about, but there's not a ton of great options either way. Royals pitching. Bullpen's going to be good. We know that. They have a lot new pieces here. And then whenever you have Ursig and you have Estevez being brought in and hopefully Hunter Harvey being healthy, but it's the rotation with the loss of Brady Singer, but a lot of options for that fourth and fifth spot. Jack, let's start here. Is Lorenzen basically locked in already as the fourth starter for Kansas City?
Yes, he is. I wouldn't be too concerned with him getting moved out of that spot, and that goes even if Noah Cameron or Alec Marsh had a really strong camp. And as we all know, Alec Marsh having a little bit more of a delayed start, along with James McArthur as well, though McArthur's in the bullpen. That's more so for a bullpen spot. But no, I believe the top four in this rotation are pretty set at this point. It really comes down to the number 5 spot, and I'll be honest, Sterling, there's not much competition for the 5 spot. I believe it's going to be Chris Bubic in a runaway.
Wow. Now, I know Alec Marsh and the shoulder injury played a part in that, but if Alec Marsh was healthy, do you think that would have been a pretty big conversation?
It would have been more competition. I just don't see a world in which Chris Bubic is going to lose that spot. And maybe that's me being higher on Chris than most. We actually spoke to him today. It shows that he's a Stanford guy. He is all about baseball, all about analytics. I mean, he talked for 5-6 minutes, and we asked about 2 or 3 questions. So he is a guy that can really tell you what's on his mind, in a good way, too. But he's just somebody that you saw what the stuff was like in the bullpen. And we saw what the stuff was like at the very beginning of 2023 before he had Tommy John surgery. What I found that was interesting about that season when he went down with Tommy John in April is he told me that this is the first spring training he's felt like he could pitch healthy for the full 6 to 7 weeks, and kind of mentioned that in 2023 he started to feel some of those aches and pains. So even going into 2023, he wasn't healthy. Last year, he's still recovering from Tommy John surgery. So now he gets that first opportunity with that full health, with full strength, to grab a spot in the rotation. And I don't see it where you saw what he did in the 8th inning in a 1-inning role, and he said that it was supposed to be a multiple-inning role. When he was working back from Tommy John, they told him, hey, we're going to get you a little bit more work in the bullpen, but it's going to be a long relief type. We want you to throw multiple innings. And then when he took that 8th inning spot, based off of the circumstances that were happening in the Royals bullpen, he just sort of ran with it. But there was never this sense, I guess, that he was going to stay in that spot. It was once he's fully healthy, once he's stretched out, which he said this offseason he's been more stretched out, he was going to go back to the rotation because that stuff still can play in the rotation. He brought up he's been working on a gyro slider, which for those that don't know what that means, it's more of a tighter slider, more comparable to a cutter. But he said since the slider that he does have is more loopy, more slurvy, like a curveball, he wants to have something that's tighter, works better against some platoon splits. So there's a guy that's already working on his arsenal, getting stretched out. And just unfortunately for the other guys, he's got the head start on him. Alec Marsh is having the delayed start. Kyle Wright's looks like he's having a little bit more of a delayed start, or he's slowly building up to it. So right now there's no competition for him other than maybe Noah Cameron. And Noah Cameron's probably going to begin the year in Omaha just so we can build back up to maybe help the team at some point in 2025. But my pick right now is Chris Bubic, and I'm about 90 to 95% confident in that.
So, yeah, I think Chris Bubic will be the 5th starter. I guess my concern, I'll say concern is, we've seen him be so effective in the bullpen. Is it the right decision to move him out of there? And also goes to show, I love what the Royals have done building this rotation, but last year was built so much on health. Can you trust all of these guys to stay healthy yet again? And by the way, Lorenzen didn't stay healthy last year. Lorenzen was outstanding. I want to hit on him in just a moment here. But your 4th and 5th starters are injured, or guys who've had multiple injuries. Your ace, Cole Reagans, again, I'm not trying to put this into the atmosphere here. I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm trying to almost play the other side here. A guy who's had multiple Tommy John surgeries. Should we be at least slightly concerned about the lack of depth following these guys in the starting rotation?
I believe there's more depth this year than there was last year. That was almost the amazing part of how they progressed in 2024 is they didn't really have a sixth starter until Michael Lorenzen joined the team, and they were able to skate by the entire year with almost flawless health, right? They never had too many guys that wound up on the injured list. Of the top three between Reagan's, Lugo, and Waka, Waka ended up on there because he fractured his foot. And by the way, pitched the rest of that game when he fractured his foot. So it's not like there was arm fatigue, a shoulder problem, an elbow problem. To have that again or to ask for that again, it feels unlikely, and it feels like you're playing with fire. But there are more options out there now where you feel like if somebody is to miss some starts, you can pivot to somebody who's done it before. Alec Marsh has done it before. Daniel Lynch has done it before. Noah Cameron has the upside. And Chris Bubich, of course, can be that guy to take the spot. But if Bubich is not the one that does it, there's 3 or 4 guys now you could turn to, whereas last year you didn't even know if you could turn to one. It was Daniel Lynch when Michael Waka went down, and that didn't really work out in their favor until Lynch moved to the bullpen and they brought in Michael Lorenzen to compete for that spot. However, the one way to counteract that, the one way to give yourself some security is having a strong bullpen. And I believe that's something J.J. Picollo has done a good job in working out this offseason, is building a pretty strong back half of the bullpen. We saw a team like Cleveland last year win the American League Central with a rotation that threw almost the least amount of innings in all of baseball. They were going through 5, 6, 7 different guys, it felt like, over the course of each month. And yet that bullpen was so good, it didn't matter when it was all said and done. They won the American League Central pretty comfortably, and it's going to be tough for Cleveland to do that again. But if the Royals can have half that, where you are going to see some regression in the rotation, but that bullpen is going to be significantly improved, you're not going to notice that regression as much, because I don't see Waka or Lugo regressing to a 5+ ERA pitcher and can only throw 160 innings. They won't be a 200+ inning guy, but they're certainly going to be a capable starter and somebody that can be good enough for a rotation that can lead them to the postseason.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm just not trying to be pessimistic here. I'm very optimistic. I feel like the loss of Brady Singer and the amount of innings he threw, nearly 180, 179 and 2/3 innings. I like the trade. I like the move. I want to talk about India in just a moment. I just feel like maybe we're getting a little bit into the hopeful era of, well, if Lorenzen can stay healthy, if Bubich can stay healthy and duplicate what he did in the bullpen and now do it as a starter. Again, don't want to start off being a pessimist. I'm just trying to I'm emotional hedge here, Jack. I'm trying to emotional hedge, and that's almost what it comes down to. One guy I guess I'm intrigued by is Kyle Wright. Had the phenomenal year in 2021. I believe, with the Braves, has been either injured or struggled in some of the other seasons. When should people expect Kyle Wright to make an appearance? Is that a guy they would keep in AAA potentially just to stay stretched out in case they need a guy? Where does Kyle Wright fit into the equation here? Because I love that move when they traded for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me so much of the Chris Medlin deal years back, and Mike Minor in that same conversation, because those were guys that were going to miss an entire year.
Braves too, by the way. All 3 Braves.
Yeah, all Braves, yes. there was that connection of going to Atlanta and saying, hey, is that guy going to be gone the entire year? Okay, we'll take him. Yeah, we'll take him for whatever you got. And Kyle Wright was acquired for Jackson Kowar, who also got hurt last year and I believe had Tommy John surgery. But when it comes to him, I understand fans are going to want to be hopeful that he can win 20-plus games again and have a sub-3 ERA and do what he did for Atlanta in their quest for a World Series. I don't believe they won it that year, but they got damn close to getting to the World Series and winning it the year that he won 20-plus games. But he is just recovering from an injury that few guys have been able to come back better with. Right, and that's not to say that he needs to be a 20-game winner, a sub-3 ERA guy, or throw 180 innings. I just see him hopefully being used as a Chris Medlin type, where if you can recall what happened with Medlin, he joined the 2015 team about midway through the season, made a couple of starts, but then got moved to the bullpen, and you never really asked too much out of him. And for Kyle Wright, there has to be good enough stuff there because the Royals still believe in him and feel like he can be a contributor. But you look over the course of his career, that 1 year is the outlier. And when you go back to guys' careers, we want to believe that 1 year is who they really are. And Kyle Wright's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career. So some of those numbers are going to be skewed because he wasn't healthy. However, with a shoulder injury like this, I want to say it was oh man, maybe John Danks was who had this injury in Chicago years ago, and that was pretty much the injury that ended his career. He was never the same after that, was never able to recapture what he did. And for Kyle Wright, the key focus will be staying healthy through camp. If he can stay healthy through camp, they'll likely put him in AAA Omaha, get built back up, and who knows, maybe make a couple starts, might be used as an opener in a few games because they're going to have to piece together that back half of the rotation to amount to the innings that Brady Singer threw, as you brought up. I just see him more so in the bullpen and maybe not being a guy that's up there for 4, 5, 6 months. We'll see him sparingly, but to me, the only thing I'm focused on when it comes to him is health and making sure he can get through camp here completely healthy and be ready to go for 2025.
When it comes to the bullpen, you mentioned it, the back half has been bolstered by the bringing in of Carlos Estevez. Obviously, now you have a full year of Lucas Erceg. Estevez has 57 saves over the past 2 seasons. You know, is he going to slide into the 9th inning role? Is Erceg still going to be the closer, or is he going to be more of the fireman role? You obviously still have, John Schreiber signed that, $2.3 million to avoid arbitration. How does the bullpen break down in your mind? Obviously, Angel Zerpa had a nice end of the year fastball. That sinker of 98 was absolutely filthy. How do you see the bullpen breaking down, especially this back end of it?
It's interesting because there's a lot of guys that can get big timeouts in the bullpen, and that's a problem you want to have, right? And it's not even really a problem. It's a great thing to have for the back end of your bullpen, especially guys that throw so hard. Something that last time I was down here 365 days ago, nobody could throw harder than 95, 96 miles an hour. Carlos Hernandez was injured to begin camp, so I want to say the hardest thrower they had leaving Surprise was Angel Zerpa, and he wasn't throwing 98, 99 like he was in the middle of the season. He was only sitting around 94, 95. Now they have 4 or 5 arms in that bullpen that average over 96 with their fastball. And I actually had 2 great conversations with both Erceg and Estevez yesterday going over velocity, the roles they would be playing, and they basically responded with, we don't care too much about velocity. We focus on other pitches as well and making sure that we don't overuse the fastball because, as Erceg told me, big league hitters can hit 100, and if you can't locate it that well, it's not going to help you that much. You have to have better offerings on your second pitch, on your third pitch. Estevez said the same thing, but for guys that have closing experience, they said wherever they're needed. It didn't seem like Estevez said, hey, I'm here to be the closer. I feel more comfortable there. They both said, hey, we're in the 7th inning, so be it. Somebody else is going to close it out behind me, and if I'm going to be the guy to get the final 3 outs, I'll be ready to do it. And that's the camaraderie, that's the confidence you want to have from these guys. These are pros, these are professionals, and Matt Quatrero showed last year. And coming from Tampa Bay, this is a very common thing. They never really had a true closer. They had guys they favored more than others, but it was closer by committee. There were times in Tampa Bay when, local kid, Blue Valley Northwest alum Jason Adam was closing out games. Then you had Peter Fairbanks closing out games. That's the way Tampa Bay operated, and they rolled. They didn't have somebody they said, okay, we're building the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning around this guy to go out there in the 9th. For the Royals, if I'm going to opening day, who knows? Lucas Erceg might be out there in the 7th inning. Because I said this yesterday where you go over the course of 162 games, Sterling, how many games are decided in the 7th or the 8th when you need that final out, when you need to have that big pitch? It happens a lot. It's not always the 9th inning like we expect it to be. So there's going to be times where Erceg rolls out there in the 6th or the 7th and Carlos Estevez is closing out games. Hell, there might be times in a big game against New York or Boston or against Cleveland or Minnesota where you have to use Erceg in the 7th and Estevez in the 8th. And then somebody like John Schreiber or Hunter Harvey is going to have to close it out in the 9th. And they're all fine with that. They know that, hey, we got to be ready to go. And that's what I found fascinating is I asked them about the mentality. Is it tougher to not know when you're going out there? Or is it tougher to have that anxiety of knowing the 9th inning's mine and I got to get these final 3 outs? And they said, we're always prepared. From the 4th inning on, we might be coming in during the 5th. We just prepare that way, and you definitely want to hear that from your relievers.
Well, with Ned Yost coming back as a senior advisor, he might be just saying, know what? No, we're doing it. Schreiber 5th, Hunter Harvey 6th. We're doing this. Lucas, you get 7th and 8th, and then the 9th inning, we're just gonna give it to you, Estevez. As we sit here on February 17th, my pick for the most saves, because I think you and I are on the same page here. I think Erceg is gonna be more of the fireman, where I do think Estevez might be more or less, I don't want to say saved for the 9th, but might get more of those opportunities. As we sit here again on February 17th, Erceg or Estevez, who has more saves? I think I'm leaning Estevez. Are you in the same boat?
It's so tough. I want to say that the first crack at the closer's job, and I don't even want to say it's a job they're going to lock up, it would be Lucas Ursig because he is the best reliever in the bullpen, and
Agreed.
baseball will tell you that the best guy in the bullpen needs to get the ninth inning. But there's just going to be scenarios where the toughest spot in the game might be the seventh or might be the eighth. And yes, Carlos Estevez has that experience closing out games. He was closing out games for the Angels last year. He was doing it for the Phillies and even in the postseason, but it was also a Phillies bullpen that was completely shredded. They were struggling to find out who they wanted to go to. They had an elite rotation, but, they were just trying to piece together who could be that back-end bullpen guy. And for Carlos Estevez, I see him more so as the eighth inning guy. If I'm looking at games in April and things are going as followed, right? There's no trouble in the seventh inning. There's no trouble in the eighth inning. I believe that's how Matt Quatraro would want to build the back end of the bullpen. In a perfect scenario, Cole Reagans throws 6 on opening day. You're up by a few runs. I believe he'd go Hunter Harvey for the seventh, or John Schreiber for that matter, and then it would go Estevez and Lucas Ursig. But again, Lucas Ursig might be that guy for the first month of the season. And even if he doesn't struggle, there might be scenarios where he's popping up more in the seventh or the eighth, and then you do turn to Carlos Estevez because of that experience closing out games.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I guess I think you're looking at two guys who both might get 20-plus saves. I think they trust. I think Ursig's the better pitcher, right? I think Ursig is the best reliever on this team. I think that in a perfect world, he's the ninth. With what we've seen from Q, if, again, as you're mentioning, the 3-4-5, 2-3-4 is up in the eighth inning, I think you're seeing Ursig over Estevez, and you might see that a few times this season. Before we let you go, Jack, Jonathan India, I know you got a little quote there you posted out there on the X, but how excited are you for Jonathan India to take over this leadoff role? The leadoff spot for the Royals was such a black hole last year. It makes it even more impressive when you look at what Bobby Witt Jr.'s numbers were. The fact that no one was basically getting on base ahead of him, and he was still able to drive in that many runs, that be that much of a game changer. What does India do for this lineup, and what are your thoughts on him overall joining this team?
It was a great pickup by the Royals, and I was honestly surprised. All it took to get both Jonathan India and Joey Wiemer was Brady Singer. I for sure thought a prospect would have to be thrown in there because of how valued Jonathan India was in Cincinnati. From all the reports coming out of the Reds, it was that he was one of the clubhouse leaders, one of the locker room guys, and you can already tell right now in Surprise how well he gets along with everybody. But from a player standpoint, you have somebody who had a top 5 walk rate in all of baseball last year, and that was without a ton of protection in the Reds lineup. There were great players, Ellie De La Cruz being the most notable, but they had a lot of injuries last year, and when things weren't going well for them, that offense could really struggle. But for Jonathan India, what never changed, and when talking with him this morning, he said, look, if you're struggling, you still got to work the count. You still got to set it up for the guy behind you. And the guy hitting behind him could win an MVP this year. And that was something that was such a problem for the Royals last year, is they couldn't find that leadoff hitter. They tried Garcia. They tried Michael Massey. They tried Tommy Pham. There was even a point in time they tried Nick Lofton at the leadoff spot, and none of them truly stuck in the way that a true leadoff hitter does. And the most reassuring thing about India in this lineup is he might hit 230. His OBP is still going to be 340 or 350, which would be first or second on the team. Hopefully second, because that would mean Bobby Witt Jr. would have a lower OBP than that, and I see him having more of a 380 to 390 OBP. But the walk rate is huge. He talked about how valuable it is just to get on base for all you Moneyball fans out there. Jonathan India is like that. He just wants to get on base or work the count, set the table for everybody in the lineup. And, yeah, not really sure where he's going to play, whether it be second, third, or left field. But to have that in the lineup, man, not only to help Bobby Witt Jr., but I'll go on record to say it's not going to surprise me one bit if he has a career year. And the reason why is when teams are facing the Royals, they understand who's in the 2-hole. They know Bobby Witt Jr. is behind him, and the last thing they want to do is put somebody on base for Bobby Witt Jr. So what does that mean? Well, Jonathan India is going to see more strikes so that they can hopefully lead him into an out, roll one over to shortstop, pop up somewhere. Problem is, though, Jonathan India is a tough SOB at the plate. He is somebody that is going to grind it out for 10, 11 pitches. He's not going to chase anything. It was hilarious yesterday during the live BP sessions. Michael Walker's out there, and you see Massey and Vinny and Salvi going up there, and they're taking their hacks. They're trying to, get a hit off Michael Walker. And Jonathan India drew a walk on 5 balls. That's what he went. He drew a walk out there, and then he just went back to the back of the line. That's exactly what he wanted to do out there. This is spring training. There's fans watching you. I'm sure there's a little bit in the players that goes, I want to put on a show. I want to take Michael Walk a yard. Michael Massey actually was able to do that. Jonathan India came up right after him and drew a 5-ball walk against Walker, which was just hilarious to see. But that's who he is. He wants to work the count. He wants to get on base, and I think it'll be a very welcome change to the Royals lineup in 2025.
Jock Johnson, appreciate it, man, down there in Surprise, Arizona, giving us our Royals information during spring training. Let us know, again, what you see from Jack if he picks up an outfielder's glove, what you see down there, especially with Michael Massey, potential the super utility. Jack, we'll be hearing from you all week long. Have fun down there, man.
All right, thanks, buddy. Talk to you guys later.
I am very jealous that he gets 70 and sunny as we get Dylan. We get this. And I can't even grow a beard. So how do you think my face feels?
About 25 degrees.
It's cold. Dylan, shave your beard off. Give it to me. That's charity, okay? Keep my face warm. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More Zone Sports Radio 810 WHB. Hear from Daniel Holmes talking Chiefs at 11:30. Mick Schaefer at 1 noon. We'll hear from Teddy Bruschi, Andrew Whitworth, and Myles Garrett. The interviews I did with those guys down on Radio Row. Love this idea from the NBA. All-Star Weekend. No one cares. I love the NBA, but I don't care. USA versus the world. I'd watch that. You're telling me Wemby, Jokic, Giannis on a team against Steph, LeBron, Durant? You watching that? I'm watching that. USA versus the world. Bring that up next year. It's a diaper dandy, baby. College basketball time. In the zone. Sports Radio 810, WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. Daniel Holmes talking Chiefs at 11:30, about a half hour. I'm excited. Sorry, K-State. Sorry, Kansas. But M-I-Z. Dylan, don't give me that smirk already. We'll talk Kansas. Don't you worry, baby.
I'm smirking because I just know why this is on the docket today.
Hey, we would have talked to you no matter what.
Reverse. Oh, no.
Football's over. We get a half hour or so of football with Harms. It's college basketball season. What do you want? You mean talk NBA? Who cares about the All-Star Weekend? I like the idea, though. World versus USA. That'll be fun.
And I do like I'm sorry, I'm battling through
the pain.
Obviously, a little sickness here, but
oh, same. Don't worry. I'm
the Chris Paul Wemby.
Yeah.
Trying to get around the rules is all time.
Yeah, Chris Paul.
And I love how
shocker.
No. Everyone thought it was Chris Paul. It was Wemby.
It was his idea first.
You could tell the whole time it was Wemby's idea because the guy is speaking to Wemby. The guy from the NBA is basically going over the rules to Wemby as Chris Paul is sitting there smiling, and then everyone is booing. And yeah,
it's great.
And of course, everyone thinks it's Chris Paul.
Well, of course, because that's what Chris Paul traditionally
right
has done.
That was probably the best thing from NBA All-Star Weekend.
Was the players trying to cheat the game?
Yes. It brought the most
great
attention.
Weekend.
It literally brought the most attention to the game.
A dunk contest. Mac McClung was sweet.
Yeah,
3 straight.
I didn't care about that, and I kind of saw the highlights, but what I didn't miss was all the people talking about Chris Paul and Wemby.
Fair.
So.
Let's do it. Well, we'll start KU. This is the worst Kansas basketball team since blank.
That's a really, really good question. I can't even remember the last time we struggled like this late.
I mean,
maybe the year after, maybe 2010.
You could say last year if you wanted to, but I think your McCullers was injured.
Right.
Your best player was injured.
It was the year after like Sharon Collins, Cole Aldrich, and all those guys left, and we lost to Northern Iowa. I would say that year after that, maybe, if I'm really trying to search.
I say this might be the worst in my memory.
Right.
Like I'm 30.
And here's the thing: like, there's a lot of outside factors. There's NIL, there's transfer portal, and the fact that the conference has expanded this year to include. I mean, Utah. Yeah, it's not a great inclusion, but I'm talking about Arizona,
BYU,
the other teams that are actually good basketball teams that you're including that you didn't have to play in the past. So you didn't have to get on the flight and change time zones.
Yeah,
and then play at 9:00 at night when it feels like damn near midnight when the game's over as your internal clock. So I don't know.
17-8, 8-6 in the Big 12. I'm trying to go back to conference. They went 10-8 last year. 12-6 and 18-19. They got to win out. What year did you say?
I want to say it's 2010 is the year after.
13-14 is the year they went 25-10.
Yeah, not that year.
Well,
guys, I'm talking about graduated like 11.
Well, 11 and 12 they went 32-7.
What was the year before that?
35-3.
Okay, so I have no idea when the last time they played like this.
I mean, it's perplexing. It really is. And I know some of the analytical numbers underlying still have them as a 4 in the tournament, all that stuff. I have just not seen a Jayhawk team look like this late into the season. And maybe that's what the difference is. This late into a season that did not have a serious injury, right? Again, last year, your best player, Kevin McCullough, right? That makes sense. In the Bill Self era, do you know what the lowest seed they've been
Oh, was it a 6 seed?
4 is what it looks like in the Bills self-air, because they were an 8 in the Roy Williams back in.
Okay. Gotcha.
They were an 8. So, what we're looking at here is fairly unprecedented, because do you think they're a 4 seed right now in the tournament?
Yeah, I'd say yeah.
I think you're a
Just off,
liar.
Ranking and team and
I think you're a liar if you think they're a 4
wins
seed
in the
right
beginning
now.
of the season. So no,
They had a great
I'm gonna
non-con.
go off the people that pay attention and do all the numbers and analytics and things like that. So I'll
The
go
nerds.
with 4 seed.
The nerds, I get
Sure.
it. I get what you're saying. The non-con was great. There's no knocking KU's non-con. One of the best in the country. But the Big 12 is down this year. And down's I don't want to say it's brutal by any means. But the Big 12 isn't having their best season. They're just not. 8-6, 17-8 overall. I don't see this Kansas team as a 4 seed right now. They're playing like a 5, 6. If you tell me right now what they are, I'd put them at a 6 probably. They're playing bad ball. And this is what's so perplexing is we have not seen this for so long. In your mind, Dylan, you're the Kansas guy. What has gone wrong this year? Is it the horses? Is it they have the guys, but they don't know how to put them together? We've heard Bill self-talk.
I think it's that. I really think it really is just a team that's not gelling. And you have a bunch of mercenaries out there that are trying to go one-on-one or trying to be the hero or trying to be the 20-point shot that fixes everything and turns the season around instead of buying into what Bill has preached and what Bill usually gets his players to buy into around this time of year, which is being a team guy, being about the little things, I'm looking at a stat right now that we got out-rebounded on the offensive glass by almost 10 rebounds.
Which
Which
this
is
late in the
insane.
season.
This late in the season, that's effort. That's, and that's probably a testament as well to the fact that you're going out to Utah playing at 9 at night.
That's no excuse, man.
It's not, but it is in the sense that it can explain some certain things where you come out maybe flat, aren't motivated. You have to get over that. You have to overcome it. But it's there, and if you don't address it and you don't attack it, then that's what happens. You get out-rebounded by a team that's completely inferior to you.
Their final 6 games at BYU, tough. Oklahoma State, sorry, Mick, easy. At Colorado, easy. Texas Tech, at Houston, Arizona. These last 6 games, what does KU do?
4-2.
It's probably
where they win one, you don't think they're going to win, and lose one, you don't think they're going to lose.
They need to be 4-2.
Right.
21-10. Is that a 4 seed? I mean, again, we'll have to see what they do in the Big 12.
Especially with a good
take
non-conference.
Jayhawks out of it and
No, with a
have
good- I'm saying
them
with a good
called
non-conference.
Cincinnati, and they're a 6.
With a good non-conference, yes, it's a 4 seed. If
They
you're
beat-
going 21-10 in the A-10 conference, then yeah, you're probably not a 4 seed.
They beat Duke. That's great. North Carolina's not been good. They
They were at the time.
They beat Michigan State.
Right.
Big wins. The Duke one's the one that really helps them. Got hammered by Creighton. Lost to Missouri. I mean, they played a lot of really good teams in the non-con. But they didn't win them all. I mean, the back-to-back losses to Creighton and Missouri, not ideal. So for all the pumping up of the non-con and how tough it was, which it was, can't take that away. Still 2 big losses on the docket for them. Again, I think Kansas still has the guys. Time's just running out to land this plane. I still think they have the talent to make a run. Badunga getting more minutes. But is Bill Self able to say, hey, KJ, you're not helping us tonight. Badunga, go give us 30 minutes. Is he going to do that? AJ Storr, is he ever going to step up? I think they have the guys. Just this puzzle, it ain't fitting. So we'll see with Kansas. Again, a tough 6-game stretch to end their season. Kansas last night, I don't want to say it's doom and gloom for K-State, 13-12 now after that loss at BYU. But this was one of the games that we talked about, right? That this felt like a loss. I don't know if you were on the same page that I was. I said if they went 5-2 over the last 7 games, I still think they can make the tournament. Again, barring them losing round 1 or their first game in the Big 12 tournament. But at BYU was one of the games I had them losing. So I don't want to go back on my take now. But losing by 15, the way they did, the lack of production from Coleman Hawkins in such a big game, the continued emergence of Doug McDaniel playing the way he has, but it was basically just him.
I think this was like one loss you could have to any of these teams, but you didn't want to have it all. Like, you should have beat BYU. If you're trending in the direction you want to be trending in,
correct,
you need to go beat BYU. Because if we're trending in the wrong direction for losing to Utah, how can we sit here and be like, oh, it's okay that K-State went and got thumped by BYU? Because it's not.
No, that was a game that they needed to because it looks good on the resume.
You can't. Now you have to beat Iowa State as the last game of the season without fail, and that's not going to be easy. And you have to win out.
Because you have.
I don't think K-State can lose another game.
If they beat Utah, Arizona State, UCF, Colorado, Cincinnati, if they go on a 5-game win streak now, right? If K-State, if you go on a 5-game win streak
against unranked opponents,
you're agreed. You're sitting at 18-12, but you're 12-7 at that point in the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can't have less than 20 wins and then not beat the teams that matter.
But 20 wins to you makes KU a 4 seed. Okay.
Yeah, because you beat Duke. You beat Duke.
Come on.
And yeah,
come on.
Then you would have to beat Texas Tech, other good teams that are actually on the schedule for us at the end of the season. So yeah.
Oh, come on, Dylan. They would have the same record in the Big 12 too. Yeah, and one's on the outside looking in, and one's a 4 seed.
You even admit that the non-conference is.
It makes a difference. It is impressive.
Okay,
I'm not.
Then how?
My point is, one, it would be 2 teams trending in different directions, and 2, my point is, I don't think KU is just not a 4 seed to me. That's all. That was the point I was getting to. If you would have said they're 6,
that's okay.
I'm 100% okay. Yeah, I'm in. They're a 5, sure.
I just don't
4.
I think the BYU loss is a little bit bigger than it's nothing.
Fair. K-State, they're still alive, but they're barely
life support
breathing. Yeah, it's life support now at this point. You have to win the next 5 for sure, and that Iowa State game is going to be massive for them. Again, the Coleman Hawkins disappearing was tough because Doug McDaniel continuously doing what he's doing.
And so Iowa State would only put them at 19 wins. So then, you actually have to then also win in the first weekend of the Big 12 tournament.
My point is, if they win out, that's 13-7 in the Big 12.
I know, but
I find that
we can't say that the Big 12 stinks.
No, I didn't say it stinks.
Year. You said down year.
Down year. That's different.
So we can't say it's a down year and then give all the credit to the fact that they had a good Big 12 schedule against bad teams.
Sure. Again, to me, it looks like one of those situations where what they did the front half versus the second half look completely different. I understand that those games happened. You can't take those away. But I am a fan of almost slightly weighting what you've done second half of the season versus first half. You might disagree. That's fine. It all depends on what your team did, right? If your team had a great non-con...
So then don't schedule non-conference opponents that are in the top 25.
No, because for Kansas, that Duke game is the only reason they're even considered a top 4 seed right now. If that Duke game did not happen... Seriously, Dylan, what are we doing here then?
Right.
But it did. And so we're counting that. That is huge for them. And Michigan State, too. Those games are huge for them. 100%. My point is, though, for K-State, you do see a team that they had figured something out. Clearly.
So North Carolina at the time was the 9 seed in the country. So you
can
say that they, But if we're going to count Duke and give them a credit, a great win at the time, even though they were still the 11 seed at the time. They weren't the 3 seed. At the time of the game, the moment
North Carolina's 15-11.
Yeah, but at the time they were the 9 seed. It was the second game
at the time, but we change. We're
right.
I get that, but I'm not gonna. It was a great. idea to schedule for Kansas. I'm not going to give them a whole bunch of credit for beating what is a 15-11 team now. We now know.
So is Missouri a bad loss? Because they were unranked.
No, Missouri's not a bad loss. What are we doing?
Okay.
But also makes Missouri's win look a little worse that Kansas has not backed up what they've done from them.
I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think that when you go into a game, it matters, and you can't just say, well, after the fact. I think that at the moment, you could have damn well played them into a slump. They could have been streaky. They could have been doing well, and you come out and put up 20 points, beat them by 10 or 20 points, and send them into a funk. That's your team doing that.
Sure. So K-State, we think they're life support. Kansas, we just differ of where they're at. But again, I might have a higher outlook than most Kansas fans as far as what I think they still could do, if that's fair. I think what they've done so far, especially the last since Big 12 has started, has been very unimpressive, very uninspiring. A lot of concern with effort still being brought up, offensive rebounding, giving up 16 is just atrocious, just brutal. Okay, That's horrendous.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a lot of potential there if they figure things out, but it's looking slim. Right. I still think they have the guys. They just got to figure out how to do it. And, again, effort being brought up this late in the season, not
I agree
ideal.
with that. I agree with that.
Missouri,
the fact that we're still that's what I'm clinging to is the fact that, well, they can turn it around. They can, change basically the culture of the team so far as effort and, it's just not – I don't think they can lose another game and continue to be – anything higher than a 5 seed. Like, if they lose one of these games, I will come to your side and say there's no way that they could be higher than a 5 seed. You cannot lose any of these next 3 games to unranked opponents, and then you may be allowed 1, and really it's probably at Houston.
Missouri with 2 nice wins over not great teams last week after falling to 2 great teams by a combined 7 points at Tennessee and then a game winner against A&M this week. Beating Oklahoma in convincing fashion by 24 points, beating Georgia by 13 at Georgia, but that game was never really close in the second half. This Missouri team is so enjoyable to watch because they do it so many different ways. They can beat you or at least play with you like A&M with the physicality. This game against Georgia, it was Anthony Robinson taking over. Sometimes, as KU fans saw, it was Tamar Bates taking over. In this game, Josh Gray, he ended up playing okay overall, but it was, Trent Pierce being almost the big, him and Mark Mitchell being the 4 and the 5. Mark Mitchell up against smaller competition in Oklahoma, he was the 5 that dominated. Dennis Gates, again, I'm so glad Missouri stuck with him one more year. Because it went from no chances on the hot seat to not winning a single SEC game last year to now he might be coach of the year. Missouri has shown they can win by shooting the 3. They almost consistently and perpetually get to the free throw line. They force a lot of turnovers. They're very opportunistic on defense. Rebounding at times has been and can be a concern, but that has been a lot better than last year. The zone that was so abysmal against Princeton in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago has turned into a good zone because what happens when you get actually good players and good athletes? That zone becomes effective. I've just been so impressed with Missouri's turnaround. They sit right now with how many games left? 5 games left. 6 games left. And they sit at 19-6. They are 5th in the SEC. That win over Florida was huge because they have the tiebreaker. The loss to A&M was big because they now don't have that tiebreaker. If they get to the top 4, double bye is massive. What do you think they are at right now, Dylan? The last bracket we saw, let me see if I can pull it up actually now. They were a 6. What do you think they are now? It should have just dropped.
I'll say a 5. I'd say a 5 trending towards a 4. They're playing good.
That's Tuesday.
The 2 teams you described are close losses, good teams. So, it was, who was it? Texas A&M and
Tennessee at
Tennessee. So,
Lenardi has Missouri at a 6, but that was
got the
last
Florida
week.
win.
It drops tomorrow.
Florida win's massive. Mississippi State. This next game is huge. This next game basically kind of is the litmus test, the measuring stick, basically tells you where you guys actually stand.
If
It stinks that they lost, but it was a 1-versus-2 matchup.
we
It's
know
not exactly
we know where they stand.
Right,
I think we know where
right.
Missouri
It's not
stands.
like they
yeah, we
lost
know where
to-
Bama stands too.
an unranked opponent at home on homecoming or something. It was Auburn. So
If Missouri beats Bama, they're a 4.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now, if Missouri beats Bama, I know it's at home, which is
Absolutely. I think
great.
they're a 5 right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, final 6 games of the season: Bama at home.
Because you beat the number. That's what I'm saying is you went in unranked and beat the number 1 Kansas team. Now you can say what you want about the team now, but at the time, you beat the number 1 team in the country. So you don't want to diminish that.
Sure. So you have Bama
Yep.
at Arkansas. Arkansas's playing better ball.
I don't see a loss after Bama.
South Carolina. I think
Kentucky will be tough, but
South Carolina at Vandy, who Vandy's playing good ball.
they are.
At Oklahoma, who
And that's a weird gym. Just an odd.
and then Oklahoma's been
scene.
relatively good at home,
Yeah.
but should still win that one. And then Kentucky to end it. There's some toss-up games here. There's some seeding. It's almost worse for Missouri because like games at Arkansas, at Vandy, at Oklahoma, the SEC's just been so good, especially defending their home court. But those don't look good as far as what I think national perception would be. It looks worse if you lose those games by far versus what happens if you win them, even though they are road games against decent opponents. SEC's just been a bear. Missouri, though, 6 games left to really make their hay. Very impressed. Very impressed with this Missouri basketball turnaround. I'll say it. Right now, Dylan, February 17th, who has the higher seed in the tournament? Missouri, Kansas.
I'm going to go with the soccer gambling route. Shout out Nate Bucati and Jake Gutierrez. I'm going to go with the tie.
Oh, that's what I was going to do.
I'm going to go with they tie.
Both are 5s. I think both are 5s.
Both are 5 seeds.
Okay, dang, that was bummer. That was
I don't
not,
like to bet.
We love fences here.
I am
huh?
hedging the emotions on Kansas. I hope they're a 4 seed. Like I said, turn it around right now. You got 3 games against not great teams to get you right and ready for the Big 12 tournament and 3 ranked opponents. But I do think they'll end up tying. They'll be the same.
Oh, it's a bummer.
It just makes perfect sense for, the rivalry.
I know.
So that neither side has the
neither
one-up.
side wins. Missouri did. win
Missouri
this year.
would. I mean,
But
they exceeded the expectations. while we
exceeded
did not.
expectations.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, it's like the Chiefs versus Denver. Denver exceeded expectations this year,
Right.
but let's be real. Who had the better season? It's still the Chiefs.
So you're saying Dennis Gates is Sean Payton?
RGR Football. You can follow him on Twitter at InHarmsWay19. Harms, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing? Glad to be back, by the way. It's been a little while. Nice to hear your voice.
It's been way too long. I've missed you, Harms. You've been ducking me.
Oh, I've been ducking you. I don't know. I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, you've been ducking me. And Dylan, I said ducking with the D. I've been ducking. By the way, football season never ends, but the games obviously do on Sundays. What do I do now? Like, I always forget once the football season actually ends, the games on Sundays, I no longer have excuses. So Sunday I had to do 7 loads of laundry. I did dishes. I went shopping with my wife. I went to a makeup store. Like,
there you go.
Well, yeah, but I need more excuses. So what do I do now? With I don't remember. Do I just become like a good husband or? It's weird.
It's job number one, right? That is technically job number one. But if you need more excuses, I'm the guy to come to. We've got golf on. I watch tons of hockey. Like there's literally. I know right now is more of the Four Nations thing, which has been fantastic coverage of hockey, by the way. But in general, I'm such a hockey nut that I'll just go right into the NHL season, and then from there it's baseball, and I just keep going.
Yeah, big baseball guy, so I'm in there. But just Sundays in general, I gotta be like, hey babe, sorry, I gotta really. We're gonna talk about this. We gotta watch the SEC Johnson sausage cornhole tournament. I know it's a rerun, babe, but I gotta watch it for work. That's gonna be the monologue to start the show.
YouTube highlights of prospects, you got to talk them throughout the season too. So just say, I got to watch some prospects on YouTube. I don't have to know everything about them. I just got to watch them.
Well, in fairness, that's why we have you on. Okay, we're having you on to talk little prospects because the season it never ends. If you are a Chiefs fan, you just get into the next year, and I guess let's start there. Have you started looking at some prospects for the upcoming draft yet for KC?
That is part of my job as well. And as a draft analyst over at the Draft Network, I've been watching prospects for, ever since I started there last August, or even before then into the summer. So, yeah, I've watched quite a few now. There's always going to be variation on what people think the Chiefs should do in the first round, who's going to be available at the end of the first round. Again, the Chiefs are in the same position where it's not 32, it's 31. So you still have to figure out what you're going to do. How do they feel about some of the players that they have in? I know everyone is ready to just kind of kick Kingsley Suamataia to the curb, and it feels like, yeah, he could probably play guard if they need him to, and I think that's still a good spot for him. But I'm still optimistic he can play tackle. But do you want to put all your eggs in that basket? Probably not. So how is the first round going to look for the Chiefs, who at this point, after you trade up to get Xavier Worthy last year, you think anyone's going to answer that phone for Brett Veach right now? He's trying to trade up in the first round. Probably not. So you have to figure who's going to be there available, looking at some of the defensive line prospects, defensive end, like tackle right now. It looks like Minnesota's left tackle, Ariante Ursary, is falling down draft boards, consensus boards, which I find to be very interesting because he's probably one of my favorite left tackle prospects in this class. Not just because of the fact that he's been one of the most consistent tackles in college football over the past, 3 seasons. It feels like more prospect fatigue, where he comes in at 6'6", 330 pounds. He has the 34-inch arms you're looking for. He's a big guy, and was at the Senior Bowl over a couple weeks ago in Mobile. He looked the part. He looked good. He's an athlete. He lost some reps like I think everyone does when you're in an environment like that. You don't see most people come in and dominate from start to finish. But I think he learned, and having those 3 days in practice and then, the game for him was just a good experience to have. And a guy who just continues to be that level of tackle in the Big Ten where you see some of these big body defensive ends and different kinds of players where you're playing, Michigan every single year and you're finding different ways to win, and he's got very good hand usage. So he's a guy that I've got my eye on for Kansas City if they want to go offensive line, but just trying to figure out what the draft is going to look like from now until April is really the hard part, especially with free agency and stuff like that.
So, by the way, I'm just very glad you brought up Kingsley Suamataia because you and I are in the same boat. I'm not ready to give up on him, but I also don't think that the Chiefs can just go into next year just saying, yeah, that's our left tackle. I just think it's way too soon to completely just cut the cord on that guy. Is so young. He just turned 22. another off season to see what he can do. I'm just not quite ready. But again, having a backup or contingency in plan does make the most sense. I think one position that the Chiefs really needed to take a look at, I think a lot of fans agree here. It's funny, we've gone so far, it's a complete, I would say 360, but then we would end up in the same spot. It's a complete 180 here. In regards to what the Chiefs fans feel about the running back position and where they should draft a running back. It went from, why would you draft Clyde in the first round? Bad pick. Don't draft a running back in the first. That's silly. To all of a sudden, the narrative has somewhat changed. I think there's some value, maybe not in the first round, obviously, but just bringing in a more explosive back to help out with what the Chiefs offense is trying to do. Any running backs maybe in the second, third, or fourth round that you have an eye on, or a guy that you think the Chiefs might try and take a look at?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of those. I've been one of the advocates for, if you've got an extra day 2 pick, specifically in the third round, that's probably going to be your bucket you're looking for. And when the Chiefs looking specifically at Isaiah Pacheco, everyone's like, yeah, they can just keep taking running backs in day 3 in the 7th round and figure it out. Well, we're kind of seeing a little bit to why Isaiah Pacheco was while in one area, I think he was very useful. When the Chiefs were a little bit better running the football, and they were opening up bigger lanes for him. You saw that explosiveness take over, where he could be a really, truly impactful player. And then injuries take its toll as well, which is also part of his running style. Like, he runs really high, and he runs guys over. Like, he wants to do that. So you see that when you with some of these guys that are going to be in the second, third round, fourth round, you're going to have some more options. Do they want to lead back? Is that what they want? Someone that can do all of it? Because I think that there's one thing that Kansas, guys that are Kansas fans are going to, or people that are Kansas fans are really going to like, is that Devin Neal out of Kansas is going to be probably an option for the Chiefs on later day 2 into that third round, maybe fourth round, depending on how he tests. The only thing that I really have a question for right now is the long speed. 2 years ago, it felt like his speed was different, like he was a bit smaller. He came into the Senior Bowl at 220 pounds, and that kind of shows up. He's not the fastest guy in the world anymore, but he's smooth. He has good vision, good footwork. He catches the ball well, and I think that he's getting up to the task of being a better pass protector as well. So the size is there for him to be able to be that kind of physical guy that you can trust on third downs. But if looking for more of a complementary back to a power back, because there's always ways you can facilitate that in, whether it's free agency or maybe if they want to bring Kareem Hunt back, because that was another thing. We saw the vision and the power and the way that he moved in between the tackles to get the most out of some of their run plays benefited them if they want to match a younger, faster guy. One of the guys that I actually watched again at the Senior Bowl was Brashard Smith, a former wide receiver, played at SMU this past year. Explosive, extremely good receiver, and he's got a very good natural feel for the position. When you find these running backs, if you go back to last year where the Giants took Tyrone Tracy out of Purdue, it was a guy who had not played a ton of running back. He played wide receiver first, transferred over, and made that change. But he has a natural feel of the position. You saw that with the Giants this year behind a bad offensive line. He got hurt this year, but he came back and was still a very good back for them. And that's not necessarily what is going to be Brashard Smith. He's not that big, I believe. 195 is where we're seeing Brashard Smith. So he's under that 200-pound threshold for some of these guys. So he's better complement, but he's fast, he's electric, and he has a really good feel for the running back position for a guy who's only played it this past year, put up a ton of touchdown numbers at SMU as well. And he showed out very well in Mobile against some better competition, especially as a receiver. You see that natural wide receiver instinct. So depending on what they want from a stylistic standpoint, there's going to be more than enough options. I think Smith is going to be more of a fourth, fifth round type of option for them, so on day 3, but there's tons of running backs in this class they could go with.
Daniel Holmes, film analyst for RGR Football, is our guest. Cam Skattebo is the name that I'm looking at still, because I've seen him projected in from the 3rd round to the 5th, but he's a guy who, after that performance that we saw in the Peach Bowl, I get it. I know the size. I understand some of the knocks against him, but when I see production, I love production, and he's a guy who's obviously a great pass catcher as well. Yep. Although my question would be, is he almost very similar to Clyde? That seems like maybe people forget how good Clyde was in college, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's a little bit of that style to Cam Skattebo, so I wonder if that's almost a non-starter to go with. As far as some guys that the Chiefs might either walk away from or bring back next year, any of these free agents do you think the Chiefs are, if you had your druthers, I guess, how do you see the Chiefs operating in regards to guys like Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, Hollywood Brown, D-Hop? What guys do you think the Chiefs bring back versus move on from?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough spot. I know lots of people are wanting to bring DeAndre Hopkins back, especially because he didn't get the ring. I don't know if you really want to bring him back next year, and it's not because he's getting older. I think physically he didn't look the same. I know he got hurt earlier in the season, and that may have been part of the reason why. But if they're going to have a guy on the outside to just eat up snaps, I don't know. It felt like they had to put him out there because they didn't have another option. And with Juju Smith-Schuster getting better production, it feels like if they're going to get some of these bigger body receivers, let's get younger. Let's see if we can get younger there. So I don't necessarily know if I would bring him back myself. I know that the Chiefs will have a different plan of attack, but overall, I think Hollywood Brown needs to be in the plans at least for next year if you can find a way to bring him back, mostly because of what we saw in the Super Bowl. And I know that's not what everyone wants to see right now, but one of the big plays that Xavier Worthy caught in that game, I know everyone's going to say, well, it was garbage time. The starters were still out there, guys. They were still trying to prevent the Chiefs from throwing the ball deep, and it didn't happen. So the one thing that I'm holding my hat on right now is I asked for this play so many times. You line them both up on the same side of the formation. You attack downfield with one of them, and then you run to the other side of the post of the deep field safety, and you ask them to choose which one are you going to guard. And they guarded Hollywood Brown going up the left side, and Xavier Worthy is running open free. Patrick gets him in stride for that 50-yard play on the right-hand side of the field. So that's what I'm envisioning if you can get a fully healthy Hollywood Brown back. But is he going to be asked? Is he going to get more money elsewhere? I don't know for sure, but he's somebody I would definitely prioritize. As it goes with Trey Smith, you'd love to have him back. I don't think that he's going to be able to get the money he wants in Kansas City that somebody else is going to throw at him. I don't see that happening. A cost-effective move, I think Justin Reed probably has an option to come back. I know they have Jaden Hicks and Brian Cook, Shamar Connor. I think you might want to move on some of those pieces to different spots. And I think Justin Reed is still a very good player, and Shamar Connor maybe stays as a situational big slot because I don't really see him being able to continue to do what he does as a safety. And we know that the Chiefs probably want to get a safety that's actually a free safety but can play 2 high and single high. And right now they don't necessarily have that. But there's a lot of safety bodies in there. He would be more of a cost-effective situation, but he also could get money thrown at him too. The last couple of guys here with Nick Bolton, maybe the most likely out of the quote-unquote big names of the Chiefs free agency to come back, because the fact that he might not have the biggest team throwing him the biggest bag. We don't really know what that's going to look like. I know some of the linebacker contracts last year looked interesting, looked inflated for a little bit. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from the Cleveland Browns got that big deal. I think people are going to compare it to that if he gets that kind of contract. I'm not entirely sure how Casey will bring him back. Charles Menahue, I expect them to look to bring him back as well. But some of the other guys, Derek Nottie, 1-year deal, Mike Pinnell was another one, as well as Tershawn Wharton. Those guys seemingly also on the way out. So that's kind of how I would address it myself if it were me.
When it comes to the offensive change that we have seen over the past couple seasons, air yards have gone down. Average yards per attempt from Holmes has been drastically down. Now, I understand a lot has been in result of what defenses have been doing to Kansas City. I go to 2022 because that's the first year that Tyreek Hill left, right? So that way we can have more of an apples-to-apples comparison here. 2022, Mahomes' yards per attempt was 8.1. Last year was 7.0. This year was 6.8. He went from 3rd in the NFL to this season 27th. And a lot of that was predicated on yards after catch. I think the game plan wasn't bad. The Chiefs just didn't have a lot of guys who were able to make a lot of explosive plays happen with the ball in their hand. Travis Kelce had 300 yards less this year, yards after catch, than in 2022. Just not good this year, Travis Kelce, which is to be expected with the age and everything, but it was a very drastic drop-off. Rashee Rice was third in the NFL overall last year in yards after catch. Not having him was massive. So when you brought up DeAndre Hopkins, I'm with you because I don't think he fits this offense. I think the name is great, and he might even have a couple good years left. I just don't know how he fits this offense with the way they are currently run, which, by the way, I don't know if Hollywood makes a lot of sense with the way this offense is currently run. He has not traditionally been a very good yards after catch receiver, which is a little bit, I think, kind of perplexing to me because I thought he would have been, but he has not been traditionally in his NFL career. I guess that's my question for you, or maybe even a job for you, Daniel, if you have not done this yet. When it comes to some of the rookie wide receivers coming into the NFL, I think yards after catch receivers will be what the Chiefs look for in the draft. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of the receivers coming into the 2025 NFL draft, but any that catch your eye and maybe could potentially fit what the Chiefs offense is trying to do, which is the short air yards, with a lot of it coming with yards after catch.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation because I think that the Chiefs have manufactured their offense because their run game hasn't been good the last 2 years. They haven't been able to run the ball as effectively as they could 3 years ago. And I'm not trying to say that Orlando Brown was a great tackle. He was a much better run-blocking tackle than they've had over the past 2 seasons, and that has shown in their numbers. They haven't really been able to run the ball to the left side. Every now and then they pop one, but we saw it drastically drop off the last 2 seasons, and they've gone to this short area, this short yardage, yards after catch, because they're supplementing their run game. So I think it's a little bit twofold. While they love to have the yards after catch stuff with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, they've been supplementing their own run game because they've been unable to do so. I think if they can improve their run game, they won't have to consistently rely on throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage and getting 6-7 yards a pop, or hitting Rashee Rice for 5 yards and getting 6 more after that. I think that they need to be able to run the ball more. So, yeah, there's going to be wide receivers in this draft class that can give you yards after catch. There's always going to be that kind of different stylistic approach to it. There's some, we know the big name, Luther Burden out of Missouri, is the yards after catch guy in this class. But this is a big body. It's a class that has a lot of big bodies in it as well, which could help the Chiefs on the outside if they can conform a better run game and consistently hit some bigger plays where they're not just the slowest running back duo at the line of scrimmage in the NFL over the season, which they were this year in large part because Kareem Hunt is not the explosive running back he used to be. And for everything Pacheco has been coming back from the injury, he didn't have that explosion either, but there was no run lanes for him to really get up to speed. So,
but Daniel, that's almost my concern or pushback or wonderment of, okay, so Hunt and Pacheco, they were not great this year, especially when it comes to explosive plays. But for all the talk of Creed and Joe Tooney and Trey Smith, if that's the best interior 3 in the entire NFL, which a lot of people think it is, why were there no holes? Is this scheme? Is it the Chiefs tried so hard to go and run the football to the outside? Now, obviously, I know Joe moved to left tackle with Caliendo in there, but then why were there no holes, and why did it struggle so much at times for the run game to get going? Now, we know Kareem was pretty darn good, especially early on when it came to picking up short yardage situations, but it just feels like for all the praise that those interior 3 got, why weren't there more holes?
So there were. They were the best rushing success rate team in the NFL for a large part of the season. They were one of the best. I think as Kareem got tired, we saw that drop off. But when you can only run between the tackles, your holes open and they close. Like they close quickly because of that, and that's why Kareem Hunt was so impactful early on when he was able to get more jump cuts and push one A gap and get to the other A gap and so on and so forth. But it limits your overall impact as a rushing game when you can't attack the edge, when you can't just sit up here, run outside zone and get a cutback lane. Like you guys remember Damian Williams in that offense where we saw outside zone and him just take a cutback lane to the house against Minnesota. Like those run concepts, they couldn't run them because they didn't have a running back to do it. And then between the tackles, sometimes you get those holes that open up if Isaiah Pacheco's the back, and he couldn't find them. His vision was not good enough to find them. And for Kareem, he could find them. He just couldn't get the most out of them. So I don't necessarily think it's the fact that the interior isn't creating holes. The running backs couldn't actually take advantage of them, and then you compound that by you don't have the most multiple in between the tackles run game. They don't run duo at all, and right now in the NFL, that's what we've seen from inside the tackle. Duo has been the best run play, and the Chiefs don't run it. So it comes down to, if you don't have the running backs to be able to take advantage of some of these holes, then you're going to be relying on inside zone, split zone, and you get 5, 6, 7 yards, and then there's no explosivity to it.
Yeah. Before we let you go here, Daniel Holmes, again, film analyst for RGR Football. Make sure you follow him on the X at In Harm's Way 19. Always doing phenomenal work as well. He will have you all up to date on everything related to the NFL draft. If you are a Chiefs fan, you must follow him to get. You must. Okay, I'm laying the law down. You must follow him, because he'll give you great insight on and updates on who the Chiefs could potentially draft. Final question we're pretty much asking everyone. Travis Kelce, does he come back next year? And if so, what does his role look like?
Yeah, I think that he'll be back next year personally. I don't think he wants to end on the note that they all ended on. And regardless of whether they win the Super Bowl next year or lose, I think they just want to go out on a better note. And I think his role is going to be complementary. The offense should run through the two young receivers, in Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. And I think that Travis might have been his role this year if Rashee Rice stayed healthy. It sure looked like it was going to be that role, and he seemed perfectly okay with it. So I personally, that's what I think. I think he's going to come back to a complementary role, and then you see these younger guys start to take over, because that's what I think this offense and team, Patrick Mahomes specifically, no offense, he locked into Travis Kelce a few too many times throughout the season. And I think that when you operate through some of these younger players and get him looking other ways, you'll find a little bit better success. So I think that's what we should see going forward with him back in Kansas City next year.
Daniel Harms, can't wait for the weather to warm up so I can kick your ass in golf yet again. In Harm's Way 19. Daniel, always appreciate it, man.
Always, man. Thanks for having me.
We will take a break. We will come back more right here on The Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you again to Daniel Holmes, film analyst for RGR Football. Make sure you check out all his great work. He will have a whole bunch of great information leading up to the NFL draft, getting you ready to see who the Chiefs could and will potentially draft. Always a fun time of year. I do think the Chiefs will start to focus a little bit more on the yak wide receivers if this is the offense they are going to run. Got to have that personnel, and while the name D-Hop makes a lot of sense, the production and the style didn't really fit what the Chiefs were trying to do. When we come back, we're going to hear the interview I had with Teddy Bruschi, the obviously phenomenal linebacker from the Patriots. I had a little funny miscue when we brought him on, so I left that in there, as well as talking with Andrew Whitworth. And then finally, it will finish with talking with Myles Garrett. Those interviews coming up next. Once again to the zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's William Holmes, no Jason Anderson, Dylan Michaels. We're going to play a little trifecta. Some interviews from Radio Row. I was down there myself. And the next three I want to play. So I want to play Teddy Bruschi because I think Teddy was just really outstanding, drawing a lot of parallels from the Patriots dynasty into what Kansas City is doing. I've tried to cut out a lot of the, some of the score predictions, obviously, and some of those situations when he's talking about the Eagles in the game specific. But as far as the overarching thought process that Teddy has, I just think it's just phenomenal. You'll hear one more voice in this interview I had with him. If you hear someone else, that is my co-host down there, Patrick Allen. We'll also play Andrew Whitworth. Jason and I have laughed a long time. If you've listened to the show, I talk a lot about how I dislike the suit with the hoodie underneath. I start with that with Andrew Whitworth, so we'll have that interview as well. I think that one's pretty fun. And then we'll finish this trifecta with Myles Garrett, the Myles Garrett interview that I had. Really enjoyed talking with Myles. Thought it was very, very fascinating. I tried my best to, again, we were not allowed to say, hey, you want to play for the Chiefs? But I tried my best to steer the conversation in that way at a time, or at least a point or two. Again, first up is Teddy. And what's very funny about the introduction to Teddy Bruschi right here, the Patriots, obviously, linebacker here, he came up wearing a ring, a Super Bowl ring. Well, I said something very silly, and it was semi-joke, but also the ring really did look like it said 07. So you'll hear me start off on the wrong foot with Teddy. We joke about it. I left it in because I look like a dumbass, and let's be real, it's more fun to make fun of yourself. So this way, everyone else can join in on making fun of me when I had a massive brain fart that also turned into me and Teddy having a nice little joke. So here is Teddy Bruschi.
You got one of the rings on right there?
I do.
It's
I do.
a little shiny.
One of the rings.
07.
Yes.
We were just talking
No.
about this.
We didn't get a ring
I don't
for
know,
07.
It looks like it said 07.
01.
My
You don't
eyes
get
are
a ring
bad.
when you lose.
That was
We didn't start off on the right foot here, did we?
now Teddy. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I can't read apparently.
Don't worry about it. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay.
It's a really
How
that's
we
a
doing,
slick
guys?
looking ring. We're doing good. We were just talking about Super Bowl rings. They're obviously awesome. Lots of diamonds and gems and stuff. Do you ever wish you had like two? Like they gave you like one like that, but one that's like a little more understated that you could wear like on a more everyday basis?
Well, this is probably the understated of them all. I mean,
Yeah.
this is from the first one in 01,
Yeah.
so they only got bigger and bigger from there.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the one for the 6th championship, and it's just, wow. It's
Yeah.
like, what do? You put that on a hood, you know, I guess. But
Yeah,
it
it's
just
a
gets that
paperweight.
big. So that's why I always like to wear the first one because, I mean, but probably because it's very, very meaningful.
Sure.
The one that we finally broke through,
Yeah.
but also it's wearable.
Do a lot of the Patriots players hate what the Chiefs are doing? Because I was talking to Ted Karras.
That's interesting, yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
He's obviously different iteration.
What did he say? What
of
did
the,
Ted
of the,
say?
of the
That's
dynasty?
interesting.
Because we started it off. He didn't really know I was from Kansas City at first, and he was wearing that green bounty jacket, and so I said, "Nice jacket." He goes, "It's also my Eagles green, right?" And I go, "Okay." He plays for the Bengals now. I go, "Because the
Yeah.
Bengals." He goes,
Yeah.
"Well, also because I don't want to see Patrick pass Tom."
Okay.
So I don't know how your thoughts are in regards to the dynasty that the Chiefs are putting together versus the Patriots.
I disagree 100%. I mean, I respect the journey in which the Chiefs are going through. The teams that I was on, this was before Karras. All right, we failed going 3 in a row because we went back to back and we failed in the divisional round.
Yeah.
We failed going undefeated. We lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. I mean, I think about those times, and then I look at what the Chiefs are doing, and all I have is respect. It's like they're attempting to do something that's never been done before, and I want to see if it can be done. It's not about passing someone or someone's greater than the other. I mean, you could ask Tom himself, and he admires greatness and what you need to achieve it. So we respect that. I respect that. He respects that. And if they can do this, and Pat and the Chiefs get their 4th, I mean, this is 3 in a row, and it's just absolutely unbelievable that if they can complete this.
Yeah, and it's not like it wipes away anybody else's accomplishments.
What
when
we
somebody else
did,
achieves
no
something.
one can ever take away.
Yeah, 100%.
Anybody can ever take away from that.
Yeah.
Winning 21 in a row, back-to-back, 3 out of 4, almost completing. I mean, the undefeated regular season, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
There is no one-upping or someone that discounts it. No, there is one-upping. Actually, there is. I take that back. There is one-upping because, fellas, that's what we were trying to do in 07. We wanted to win the championship. To where in a place like this, in Radio Row, when I go up to all these players, and all of them have won Super Bowls before, oh yeah, but we got the undefeated ones.
Yeah.
Oh, but we got 3 in a row.
Yeah.
So champions look at that as in terms of this is the one I got, and it's better than yours.
Well, and that's why I was wondering because, like, the Dolphins, they still pop the champagne once the final team loses or the last undefeated team loses, right?
Right.
So I was wondering if there was a similar situation with some of the Patriots, but it sounds like, at least you personally, you're not rooting for it, but you like witnessing and watching greatness in history unfold when it comes to some of the parallels you see. Because to have a dynasty like the Steelers were in the 70s, like the Cowboys in the 90s, like the Patriots did for 2 decades, like the Chiefs are in right now, there's obviously things that stand out. But what makes a dynasty in your mind? What are some traits that really allows them to stay there at the highest pinnacle for so long?
The first and most important thing is the coach. All right, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid. I mean, you're talking, Bill Walsh. You're talking Chuck Noll. Those type of guys. It's got to be the coach. Then comes a quarterback that's probably exceptional, and then you got various other players that are along the way that have contributed in great ways. That's what happens because, I mean, this is a sport where the quarterback's not even on the field. There are the 2 other units. So these teams have to be built and they have to be maintained. And that's why I knew that this Chief team, based on the draft they had a couple years ago, the young players on defense, and then continually see players like the Karlaftis, the Chenal, the McDuffies, all of these guys that are coming out of nowhere. I think it was Watson also. I mean, these players are getting better and better, and then they're the ones that actually, for the last 2 years, have bought Patrick and the offense time to develop while they're still winning football games. You're blocking kicks to win games.
Right.
And you're blocking a walk-off block kick. Come on. These are squads and total units that have to contribute to this.
So
right?
in the 7 years as a starter, this will be his, 5th Super Bowl, and then the earliest exit he's ever had is overtime in an AFC Championship game. That happened twice to the Patriots with Tom and then against the Bengals.
See, that's amazing to me because we failed. I mean, we won in 01, and we didn't even make the playoffs. It's almost like we needed a slap in the face to remind us to, like, hey, who do you guys think you are?
Yeah.
And these players, you need better players than what you got.
Yeah.
So we had to do that. And then we came back and won a couple more. But still, these Chiefs, they from day one, when Patrick came on, it's just so amazing what they've been able to do.
Yeah.
When it comes to Steve Spagnuolo, he is going to be the
What a
Eagles'
coach.
worst nightmare.
What a coach.
What are your thoughts on Spagnuolo? Would you have ever liked to have him use you as a chess piece? I know, obviously, you played with one of the best defensive minds, maybe the best defensive mind of all time in Bill Belichick. But Spagnuolo is, and I guess, would that have been 07? Sorry.
Yeah.
That's on
It's
me.
okay. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
It's
Teddy.
It's coming with you. It's all right.
Yeah.
In 07, I saw his brilliance. I mean, when he shut down one of the greatest offenses in the history of the game in our 07 squad with Brady and Moss and all of those guys and Welker and the good offensive line and everything, and he shut it down. And I'm witnessing these plans of, was it Kavika Mitchell? I mean, linebacker faking a blitz, faking a drop, then he blitzes, all of this stuff, or just those 4. I mean, it was, Brady said it was like throwing through the forest, you know what I mean, with Strahan and Tuck and all of these guys that were coming after him. And such a great coach, such great plans, and such guts. I mean, 4th and 5 versus the Buffalo Bills. Send the corner. This is what we are. This is what we do. See if they beat it. My players versus yours.
He sent middle linebacker. So middle linebacker Nick Bolton dropped into coverage. Defensive end Mike Dana dropped into coverage. Your best coverage players, Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie coming on a blitz. I've wondered this. Do you think he's able to do some of these more aggressive, unique blitzes because he has the rings to back it up? Because I do think some defensive coordinators, if that play doesn't work, I don't know if they have the stones after the game to stand to the media and be like,
Yeah.
I sent a blitz on 4th and 5 with this, but Spags, this is what he has always done. I think he's going to live and die by it, and he clearly keeps living by it.
See, the Buffalo Bills and other teams see those plays and those moments as the crucial moments that their whole season is defined by.
Yeah.
Right? That's just another play to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Because they've been there so many times and they've succeeded. When you've done that, it's like it's just who you are. All right? It doesn't matter the game. It doesn't matter the situation. What's the game? Play the game you're in. What's the call?
Yeah.
All right? Execute the call.
Yeah.
And with that, it's like, oh, the Super Bowl's on the line, by the way. That doesn't matter.
I think it's a
That's the
philosophy
difference.
thing for him, too. If he's going down swinging. He's not going to go down being conservative unless he really thinks it can help him win. And you kind of have to admire that. You see a lot of teams lose by playing not to lose. And
Right.
Spags
And
plays
faith
to
to
win.
those players that faith in McDuffie and Bolton and all those guys that you drop, you don't, you rush and all that stuff. I know you've done it before. I can call whatever I want.
A lot of fun talking with Teddy Bruschi right there. Obviously, the Patriots linebacker, a focal point of the dynasty for so long. A lot of fun talking points he had. Obviously, his respect for Spagnuolo, talking about the 07 season, how you can't take anything away, obviously, but there is some one-upsmanship in what you're trying to do in regards to, going undefeated, just how the Chiefs would have had that to hold over every other team with the three-peat if they were able to complete it. Up next, we will hear from the interview I had with Andrew Whitworth.
What, you didn't want to shave the beard and
I
go
couldn't
all
go
white?
that far. Listen, we're
You
both
trimmed
sexy
it up.
bald men, I trimmed it down, though. That's what we did.
Yeah, I love this
We cleaned it
partnership
up.
you have with Mr. Clean, by the way. We got a video here, so folks on or listening afterwards, we
Yeah.
have Andrew, and then we have Mr. Clean right next
baby.
to him. It's gorgeous. Your guys' domes are sparkling.
Yeah, Mr. Clean and Mr. Clean 2.0, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I have to ask this question
Yeah.
because I've told people about this, and they say if you ever have a chance to interview Andrew Whitworth, I'm held to the standard now, so I have to do it. Don't kick my ass here. The sweatshirts under the suits.
Yeah, the hoodies.
The hoodies under the suits.
Yeah.
Sweatshirts, I don't know. You kinda
Sweatshirts,
try
no.
You try to lean it to your side.
The
with these
hoodies.
sweatshirts.
I'm sorry. It's
The
not
hoodies.
it's not for me, Andrew. Why the hoodies?
So
You're a big guy, so I
always had wore a hoodie.
Okay.
I was a very large human.
Yes.
I'm still a large human, but I'm a less large human. So I'd always wear a hoodie because when you're big, you have big back, big neck. Collared shirts don't fit right. They like sprawl out, so they never
Sure.
look good. And so I hate it, and you can't button them for sure. So I hated wearing collared shirts. So I either wore a T-shirt or a hoodie with everything I did. And so when I started to do this job, I didn't know I was going to do TV, and we had a dinner, and I was meeting everybody there with Amazon, and I wore a hoodie under it was kind of like a jean jacket type
Sure.
look, but it was like casual. And they're like, do you normally? I was like, yes, this is like how if I was going to go out to eat, I'd wear like a hoodie and put some kind of nice jacket over it. And they were like, wear it week one if you want. And so I did, and people loved it, and some people hated it. It became a thing, and now it's great because every week I love it. It's like half the people send like, you're disgracing football as you have a hoodie on. And then half the people are like in my DMs, just constant DM flood of send me the brand. Like, who is it? So it's just unbelievable. It's so funny. Some people get so livid about it. And then some people are like, this is my husband's birthday gift this year. Please send me the brand, like blah, 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 blah. So it's really been fun just to see people react to it. That's the best part.
That's
why I
hilarious.
enjoy it. And I wear a hoodie all the time, so I'm used to it.
I'd love to lean on your expertise a little bit. I mean, you played guard in the NFL and then moved to tackle. Joe Tooney is doing that for the Chiefs. They were really a couple of young tackles, weren't quite ready, struggling, giving up pressure really fast. Joe Tooney goes out there. Can you explain to our audience like how difficult it is to change? I think a lot of people think, oh, you're on the offensive line. You're playing here, you're playing there, but it's a whole different world, right?
It is. I mean, it's much like I like to relate a lot of things to other sports maybe that people have played, but to me it's a lot like playing defense in the paint in basketball and then all of a sudden saying, hey, you're going to go to the top and you're going to play out in the perimeter with guys. And now all of a sudden they got all the space in the world. They can cross you over. They can do all these things. They can back away from you. They can take off past you.
Yeah.
And you've got to now learn where is the basketball goal behind me when I'm way out here past the three-point line. compared to that, like when I'm down under the key, right? So now it's like, all right, when I'm in that block and I'm a guard and I know where my walls are, I know how to kind of stay in front of you. But now I'm moving out to this massive space, and you can kind of go anywhere you want. I got to be prepared for all the different things you could do to get to the basket.
Yeah.
That's what moving to tackle is. Now all of a sudden you're on that island, and there's a lot of places this guy can go to attack you, and you really have to have a totally different feel for the down because it happens later. At guard, immediately when the ball is snapped, you're in action.
Yeah.
At tackle, unless you're a jumper, it's happening much later. So now your timing, your rhythm for when you're used to making contact and feeling out a guy, you know, as you're playing through this process of a pass rush, totally different. Now, the run game, it's not a whole lot different. If anything, I'd actually argue it might be a little easier because he's facing lighter guys on the edges.
Sure.
But in that space, it is wildly different, and it's been so impressive.
So Lane Johnson and Juwan Taylor both have that pretty quick, borderline gray area, first kick, right? Juwan also sometimes has that borderline where he lines up. What are your thoughts on that obviously as a tackle? Do you like what Juwan does specifically? I mean, we do a lot of KC stuff here, but I'd love to get your thoughts on Juwan. Do you think he's getting picked on sometimes by the referees? Is some of it the reputation, or is he actually just lining up so far back that, hey, Juwan, maybe move up a little bit here?
I mean, there's definitely some times where he's too far, and he pushes the limits of that, obviously. And then even, like, sometimes gets called for it, and it's like the next down he's in the same exact spot. You're like, man, he loves to just push the limit with it. But so some of those are a little susceptible. I mean, I'm always just super jealous. Him and Lane get off the rock so fast. I wish I could move like that at any point in my career because it makes the down so much easier. But, really, to me, it's like some of those are tough when you're talking about moving too fast because I think what's interesting is, like, you can get on a broadcast and try to do the audible of the quarterback. But, like, sound and all that in the stadiums and when it's loud and there's audible noise, like, it travels different than you think. And so, like, they're always living in a world where they're having to anticipate the words when they're coming out. And you can't really say, like, all right, well, when do you hear it and when do you not? And then, did the ball move? Like, we can slow the camera down. And, like, well, what if the center just audibly heard it a little later than him, and so he's moving so you just get into, in my opinion, that's a lot of what the ref stuff is.
Sure.
A lot of this ref stuff is, like, people say, the refs aren't keeping up with the game. No, now we have a million ways to clip all these clips and slow it down and go, oh, my gosh, this ref didn't see what I can see in slow-mo in live action with 7,000 things in his face. Like, it's just stupid. Like, it's an excuse. And so, to me, it's like a lot of those things get a little silly. Now, lining up too deep, Juwan Taylor definitely needs to move up a lot of times. I'm always watching the games. I'm like, all right, come on, that's too much. Like, you're definitely getting away with stuff. But when it comes to the other stuff, I think we get a little picky, and we try to find that stuff. And, yes, there's going to be some reps where his foot moves a little early. That's football, though, and I don't think there's a lot of reps. The end moves fast, too, and he's borderline. Like, is the ball moved all the way yet? I mean, we can get into that all day.
Yeah. The nuances.
Yeah. Oh, man. Listen, how many nose guards are lined up with their freaking football from their helmet over the football? Go clip those off every season. You miss those, hundreds of those every year.
See, guys, I did it. I told you I would do it. Jason, I did it. Everyone called me soft, that I wouldn't ask Andrew Whitworth if he did the hoodie under the jacket, under the suit. Had to call him out. That was a great answer. A lot of fun talking with Andrew Whitworth. Just fun to see the transition, too, of a guy going from guard to tackle a la Joe Tooney. Obviously, not the results that we wanted here in Kansas City with that move out there, at least in the Super Bowl, but nice getting the perspective of what that was like. Up next, finally, we will have Myles Garrett interview I had with Myles. Hopefully you guys enjoy this.
The biggest forearms in the game.
Holy moly.
Yeah, he'd be a great baseball player. Any check swing. Mike, you play baseball at all? Did you ever play a little baseball?
I was actually, funny enough, I was at Trevor Story's spot. He has a new gym that he built, and we're hitting some curveballs.
Were you really?
We were.
Form, he's checking on everything. He can check that right there.
Actually, funny enough, I was just talking to Jay Glazer just not that long ago, and he was telling me about the MMA training that he's done with you. So talk about that a little bit and how that translates to football.
I mean, that handwork is invaluable.
Yeah.
That hand-eye coordination, knowing how and the velocity of placing your hands. That's all they do. Trying to parry, deflect, gain an advantage. Those things are very transitional between our two sports.
Yeah, and I know you're here with Oikos right here with surprising strength, which I don't think anyone's surprised by your strength. But can you tell us a little bit more about this partnership you have rocking?
Well, you might be surprised by my partner, Juno, when this game day commercial comes out.
Yeah.
First time, and first Super Bowl commercial, so that's something big for both of us. But Oracles Pro is something that's part of my diet in the mornings before I get my workout in, 20 grams of protein. It just helps start the day off well and get me feeling good and going into the day, already starting fast and starting strong.
Yeah, I think maybe it could change me. Maybe one day I could look like Myles Garrett. I know you had that what you put out yesterday, I believe. Let's start here. Warm weather, cold weather place?
Winning weather.
Winning weather. I like that. I like winning weather.
So I guess that kind of leads to my question is there like an ideal situation for you out there? What would that situation look like to you?
Just a team that's in need of my services, who's looking forward to contending here soon and just giving us the opportunity to win on the next stage. Yeah. And I just want more opportunities for that.
Do you love the creativity given into you in certain defenses? Is that a big part, like making sure that you are still the focal point, or does that even play a factor in this?
Definitely is something I'm looking to see further down the line. Wanting to be a focal point and having that freedom to move up and down the line, coming off the edge, having things designed to help give me one-on-ones. So it don't happen very often. So
yeah, a lot of double teams.
Yeah, so freeing me up to be able to make those big plays is definitely something that I would keep my eyes on.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, you don't have to respond to what I'm going to say. I am a Falcons fan. The Falcons, in my opinion, and I'm just saying this to the camera, the Falcons are a pass rusher away from being a Super Bowl contender. You don't respond. I'm just talking to the camera. You're not even there. I'm just saying that. What is obviously you're going to have a little bit of a busy offseason ahead. What's that going to look like for you?
Off-season?
Yeah, in terms of even just training, are you just kind of honing your skills right now? Are you going to do some more MMA stuff maybe?
MMA, yoga, Pilates, some traveling. I'll continue to working on my languages, but always in between all of that traveling, just make sure my diet's on point, and making sure that I can train wherever I go. I don't want to ever get away from my regimen and staying ready, so I don't have to get ready.
Did you say training or work on your languages? Are you learning other languages, and which ones?
Working on Japanese, working on
wow.
Turkish, and I want to learn Spanish. I want that to be my next one.
Nice.
What made you want to go with like Japanese and Turkish specifically is a little bit of a different one. I mean, most people would be learning Spanish or French or something like that.
Well, I took a trip to Turkey a couple years back and I absolutely loved it. And cultures that I'm really intrigued by, or really had a great experience with, and I want to be able to further become part of that culture. And I want to be able to experience the parts that maybe a foreigner or just a tourist wouldn't be able to see. Be able to get that access, being able to become one with those people, at least for the time that I'm there. And same thing with Japan. I've always had a fascination for their culture, for their people, for their traditions. I've been a big anime fan and manga,
sure.
so all those things collectively just maybe make that decision.
Fun. I've always wanted to go to Istanbul. I've always thought that'd be a really cool spot to go to in Turkey. So I've actually wanted to do that at some point in my life. So
outstanding.
So now I have a recommendation,
Yes.
and it's actually from Myles Garrett. That's pretty fun right there. When you look at the Eagles and Chiefs defensively, what do they do that stands out? Because both of these two defenses are very unique. They're built very differently too, but yet they're both here and have two of the best defenses in the entire NFL. What do you think they do that kind of separates themselves?
Well, the Eagles are more comfortable, just attacking you straight up, using that front forward to get after the quarterback and allowing those other guys to provide time for them to get there. They'll mix it up every now and then. They have some great linebackers. Zach Bond had a great year. They have a great defense overall, and Jalen is having an exceptional year. He's come on each and every game, but the Chiefs. They want to dial it up a little bit more, especially when it gets to second and long, third and medium, and mixing it up, hitting you with different looks, trying to slow down your process and making you make a mistake, while the Eagles kind of just want to bludgeon you.
Yeah. When you see that final play, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it with the Chiefs-Bills, that final play of the game, and they're sending Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie, and yet Mike Dana, one of their edge rushers, is dropped into coverage. Like if you're obviously as an edge, how difficult is that? Is that fun for you to try and see these unique play calls that Spags draws up?
I mean, I've been a part of some of myself, being with some different coordinators, and it's definitely fun seeing those smaller guys get in the mix and making those plays, and it definitely throws the quarterbacks off. And seeing the Chiefs do it, they have the guys be able to mix it up all over the board. I know they draft and they select these guys, and they're looking for guys who are a bit multifaceted and have that ability to cover, but also don't rush and blitz.
That was Myles Garrett. That was myself and my co-host down there on that interview, Ian McMillan, talking with Myles. Again, just a very interesting dude. Speaks 3 languages. Had a recommendation now from him to go to Turkey and go to Istanbul. Again, we had to get the answers, or at least some of the questions, fleshed out by their PR staff. Couldn't get too in the weeds with some of the things there. But again, he wants to go to a winner. We'll see what that means. Would love to see if KC could open up that cap space, because obviously we know KC, they are winners. The Eagles game not included. Let's be real, they're in a better situation than almost any other team in the entire NFL. Adding Myles would be very, very fun. We will take a break, come back more. Zone right here, Sports Radio 810 WHB. joins us in the 1 o'clock hour. Hope you guys enjoyed the interviews from Radio Row. A few more of those coming your way as the week goes on. Just like talking to Teddy, Andrew Whitworth, and Myles Garrett right there. Again, tried to sway Myles the best I could. Where you want to go? Warm weather? A winner. That's the weather he wants. KC, you know where to go, Myles. Come on. By the way, our live coverage of Royals spring training is brought to you by WeatherTech Renovations, Kansas Lottery, Randy Curnow, Buick GMC, and CBD American Shaman. Some news breaking down there from Surprise, where again Jack and Easton are. Royals extend the contract for J.J. Piccolo as well as pick up the 2026 option on Matt Quatraro's contract. Not a big surprise here, but again, some fun news for Royals fans, keeping the core together. The team announced J.J. Piccolo's contract is now extended through 2030 with a club option for 2031. And again, no surprise, but the Royals announced they have exercised the 2026 club option on manager Matt Quatraro's contract. Down there from Surprise, J.J. Piccolo spoke today. I cut out the first intro here talking about that contract extension. Here is J.J. from Surprise.
Being extended and having a little bit more security now for you, what does that mean, and what were those conversations like with John and Coach?
First of all, I just want to thank John for his trust in our front office and the things we're doing together. I mean, we have a incredibly good relationship with a shared vision, and it comes from him, and understanding what's important to him is important to us. I mean, that's our boss, you know. But I think what's great about John, he's a great listener. You know, there's times where he's going to be more curious than others, but he's outstanding. You can bounce ideas off of him. Same can be said for Brooke Sherman and Sarah Torgo. They're all just great to work with. So just the fact that they trust our front office to move forward is a compliment to not me, but to everybody that works for us. So just happy we're going to get time to keep doing and building and ultimately just have a consistent winner over many years.
And keep Q in place.
Yeah. Q's been outstanding. You know, Q pushes us all the time. He talking about another person that listens extremely well. He's curious. He causes us to think and rethink things, and that's refreshing. And we have a great relationship. I'm happy, you know, he's going to be here for another year, and certainly expect him to be here longer than that. So, you know, happy for him as well.
To have like stability like that, and you can ask John about it too, but what do you think it says about the organization and kind of what you guys are building?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the continuity that we have. You know, it was, you know, kind of a fast and furious first year where we're getting to learn about each other a little bit more. You know, really probably June of 23 is where I feel like we grew even closer to understand what his vision is, and it gave us an opportunity to prepare for the off season. I think it was a really important time during those months, June, July, August, to set the vision of the organization, not just in our front office, but scouts, coaches, trainers, strength coaches, the list goes on and on. And we had an opportunity to do that early in October, and I think it really paid off well. But really it starts with that relationship between John and I, and then the relationship between Q and I, so we can carry it all out.
What have you learned over the past, 2+ years, almost 3, about being in this job?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, we could talk for a while on that. I think the thing that stands out is how fragile things can be. One year it's a tough year. The following year, we do a few things where we have a successful year. And as well as last year went, we got to remind ourselves we got into the playoffs by one game. And it was really just through a tough week, the ups and downs of a week in Cleveland, moving on to Houston, that just speaks to how fragile your season can be. You got to do a lot of things to get through the season. Number one, stay healthy, and that's really not something we can control. We all have a lot of faith in our training staff, our strength and conditioning staff to keep guys healthy and available. But injuries are a part of it. So I think more than anything, you just got to be ready to adapt and move and push. I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is just the importance of depth in the organization. You never have enough pitching, but you never have enough players. And I think when Vinny went down last year, that was kind of a key moment. And within a couple days, we were able to add 3 different people to our roster. It's that kind of tone that we want to set, that we're never going to settle. We're going to keep pushing because there's an expectation to win ball games and to serve our fan base the best we can.
That was GM JJ Piccolo right there, speaking today down there at spring training in Surprise, Arizona. Again, the contract extension through 2030 with a club option for 2031, with Q getting that extension that picked up for 2026. And he mentioned some of maybe the one concern I have for this upcoming season for the Royals, the only reason why I think that I'm not going up to like 92 wins or 93 wins for this Royals team is the health that they had with their starting pitching last year. And he mentioned like just counting on that year after year. Yes, you'll have Vinny back, hopefully for the full season, right? That's a big boost. But can you count on Walker, Reagans, and Lugo to replicate what they did last season, while also counting on a guy in Chris Bubic and Michael Lorenz in that 4-5 role to stay healthy full season? We'll see. Again, on paper at least, I love what this team looks like. Some of the depth, again, once Alec Marsh gets that shoulder back, Kyle Wright coming back from injury, you have some of that depth there, but you are counting on a lot of guys coming back post-injury. What can they do, and can Chris Bubic do it for a full season? Not trying to be Debbie Downer, but trying to temper my expectations, because typically I'm the most optimistic guy out there when it comes to Royals baseball. Now that the Royals actually have expectations, I'm almost emotionally hedging myself on what they can and will do. Next up, who spoke down there was Matt Quatraro. Matt Quatraro, again, as I mentioned, signed that, at least had the club option picked up for 2026. Hopefully a long-term extension is in the cards, as JJ Piccolo spoke about and talked about. But here is Matt Quatraro speaking today down at Surprise.
What was the message to the team today, getting them all together for the clubhouse meeting?
Some of it's logistical stuff. Everybody talks a little bit, the different departments, but more so than anything is just, this is a new year. This is soak it in, enjoy it, get ready to work, because we know we have to be better than we were last year.
That kind of seemed, like what the players are embracing a little bit too, knowing that they had the success last year, but that they have to prove it again this year.
Oh yeah, and truthfully, a lot of the message came from what they told me, right? I mean, this is their team, and this is they take ownership of their career, and that's what makes this group really special.
A lot of guys said it felt like their first day of school coming back and just being around. Did you know it's a different energy just knowing you have the full squad here today?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's more people. Everybody's in a uniform. I mean, it's time to go, and I just hope they're better. I know these guys are better ball players than they were students, so we're excited about that. And just to have them out here, everybody together. There's only one day like this the whole year, and it's special, and it's something that we don't take for granted.
Everybody show up.
Yeah, as far as I know. I have not heard the otherwise, so that's good.
Yeah. Do you have any update on Marsh and what his throwing schedule might look like, or is he more just to keep continuing to do?
Yeah, I mean, he's in a progression. He's got a side coming up at some point in the next couple of days, but I don't have it committed to memory. But really, it's just going to be he's still in the throwing program progression, and get it on the mound soon.
Last year, you guys showed up to camp coming off the 106-loss season. This year, you're coming off a playoff series win, lose the Yankees. But what's the biggest change you've seen from some of these guys coming back now knowing they can win at a very high level?
Probably the understanding of how close they were. I mean, that wasn't the case the year before, and understanding how fine that line is, the difference between going home with a really sour taste in your mouth like we did last year and getting all the way. And I mean, I think that to be realistic about their goals and the fact that we have the talent in that room to win, I think they believe in that more now.
The minor league signing to bring Luke Maley in, does that just give you more depth catching-wise?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Luke's a really good catcher. He's a great team guy. He's somebody that can provide a lot of depth.
That was Matt Quatraro down there today at Surprise, Arizona. Little daily update from Q. Again, shout out to Jack and Easton being down there, getting behind the scenes, giving us some great audio to send back for us today on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Some news. Breaking news, Dylan. Sporting KC moved their match to Thursday against Miami due to inclement weather. So Thursday now against Miami due to inclement weather. You getting excited for that? You gonna bundle up inside, Dylan? Maybe start a fire?
Yeah, maybe.
You don't have a fireplace, but he's still gonna start a fire.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
I just got to wait a little bit longer to see Messi, but it'll be all right. It'll be all right.
You think your house is gonna get messy? That's what you're saying, or
No.
Oh, the soccer player. Oh, yeah, yeah. Just a little bit longer. Thursday, Sporting KC moved their match to Thursday against Miami due to inclement weather. All right, final audio down there I want to play from spring training is the newest. One of the newest faces there in Kansas City, the new leadoff hitter, Jonathan India, the on-base machine. He was top 5, I believe 5th last year in walk percentage. So you're getting a guy who can get on base even if the average is not outstanding. Again, a guy who gets on base is exactly what the Royals need at the top of the lineup. And again, the numbers that Bobby Witt Jr. put up last season were ridiculous, especially put into perspective of how poor the leadoff spot was for KC. India should help fix that. So here is Jonathan India speaking today in Surprise.
Down here in Surprise, Arizona with Jonathan India. Jonathan, first things first, what's this camp been like for you? Your first time with Kansas City coming over from Cincinnati. What's been some of the takeaways?
Yeah, I could just see that everyone's very, very professional here. You can tell that everyone knows, what they want to do this year. They have one goal, they want to win. They were at the playoffs last year, so they know what it takes. And I'm excited to be a part of that, help them, and do everything I can to get back there with them.
Going into this offseason, one of the focuses was bringing in a leadoff hitter like yourself, somebody that draws a lot of walks, top 5 in walk rate last year. What goes into your approach when you're up there at the plate, leading off a game, just trying to work the count? What's going through your mind?
I'm just trying to put a good at bat together. Being a leadoff guy, you want to set the table for everyone. Your main goal is to get on base, but if you're not, if you're struggling at the plate, you at least want to have a good at bat, work the pitcher, and set up the at bat for the next guy. So my goal is always to get on base and produce runs. Get on and score runs.
I know one of the talks this camp too has been moving around positions a little bit. Know you're a second baseman. Know you've only played second base, but is there a spot third base, left field that you want to try out a little bit? You feel a little bit more comfortable with? What are you expecting to see in camp with moving around a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just gonna play. I'm gonna do infield and then do some outfield work as well. I don't know where I'm gonna play yet, but I know I'm gonna get work in both areas, and so it'll be my first camp doing this, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
If there's one thing you want to leave surprised with, something you improved on, something you've been working on, what would that be?
Leave surprise. Let's see. Not necessarily my game. I think it's just overall health, just to be healthy for the season.
Health is always key, especially when you have the ability to get on base that Jonathan India possesses. That does not go away. Although we do see sometimes guys come to Kansas City who have had better walk rates come here, and that walk rate goes down a little bit. But again, with this new iteration, this new team, hoping that stays, because India could be a complete X factor for the top of the lineup for Kansas City. Plus, he'll see a lot better pitches with Bobby Witt Jr. behind him now. Good all around for KC. All right, breaking news. We were lied to, Dylan. We had been bamboozled. Wednesday. Sporting KC against Miami now moved to Wednesday. Do we have it right this time, Dylan? Are we good? He's nodding his head yes this time. Okay. Sporting moved their match to Wednesday against Miami due to inclement weather. So you don't have to wait too long for your house and to also watch Messi. Right? Boom. Hey, we got there. We got there, baby. It took a second. It took some miscommunication. It happens. Sporting KC moved their match to Wednesday against Miami due to inclement weather. We will take a break, come back, more Zone. Sports Radio 810 WHB. 98th percentile. Walk percentage, 97th percentile. This is a guy who's going to give you a professional at bat and get on base that travels. Not only that, he's not a guy who's going to clog up the base paths. He was not the fastest guy by any means. He had 13 stolen bases last year, but 68th percentile sprint speed. Again, him and Bobby are going to be a lethal combination at the top of the lineup. Whatever Bobby Witt Jr.'s RBI total is heading into this year, I am ripping the over on it. Again, because Jonathan India does get on base. Mick Schaefer coming up next, talking Mick a lot of basketball, college basketball, talking a little bit of Royals, and a lot more right here on the Zone Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer.
Finally he gets here.
Hey, you were good. You got here at 101.
No, I know, but I should have been here for the first 3 hours, really.
Oh, yeah.
Could have made the show so much better. Like you made Sunday Sound Off better last night. Appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome.
You had your pea coat on. You had your pea coat on. You had
the blazer.
Your mustache.
This is not a mustache. This is just a smattering
It just grows a lot more above your lip than anywhere else.
It's just stubble.
Yeah, it's stubble there, but like it's really coming in above your lip. You look like you have a mustache still. You had your boots on. You had your salmon pants.
Did you like it?
I mean, it's what I expect from you. So,
good.
Yeah.
Well, as long as I make your expectations, because your expectations I know are so high of me.
You're filling the role. It's you dressed as you, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
But it was a good night. Good crew, you, Jason, and Blair.
I can't manage your expectations.
Yeah, Jason can make that, but not this. That's okay. That's fine.
When are we going to get Dylan on? Sound Off.
When you ask
whenever
him, probably.
You want the show canceled? So, whenever you've just had enough of it, I'll come on and just torpedo.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Dravetta on.
Well, Dravetta's good. Dravetta brings substance.
Dravetta's okay.
Nah, he's great.
Adam's okay.
Adam's a pro.
Have you asked Dylan yet?
I don't.
That's why,
Mick.
You? That's why. You have to ask him. He's not just going to show up on a random Sunday and be like, is today my day? You got to text him.
Dylan, do you want to be on next week?
Why not?
It's fun. It's
Why
easy,
not?
right? It's not hard. I mean,
why not?
You get the 3 questions beforehand, and then a fun question from the internet. And you all know beforehand.
I know I make it look hard. It's really easy.
And if you drop a bomb, we could retape. So don't do that. Nobody's
Nick
done
Jacobs
that in a while.
has got me in that department, though.
Oh man, Nick, like even like the soft cuss words are cuss words.
Like you can't
Hell
say
and damn.
two scoops of ass.
No,
cannot
do
say.
not. No,
I can say buns though, right?
I don't even think he likes heck and darn.
See, I would have the.
I don't think he likes buns.
I would have the utmost respect for the opportunity, so I wouldn't even. I would not even come near the line. I'm not a habitual line stepper like. 2 scoops of ass.
I didn't say it though. I
Junior.
never have. I'm a respectful I'm a respectful man.
You are a habitual line stepper.
Well done.
Thanks.
For I saying that, Nick Jacobs is going to have you.
He doesn't control me on radio, man.
I love that.
Doesn't control me on radio.
But see, like he patrols you, and Dylan out here is like, say whatever you want, man.
Yeah.
Just don't.
I just keep feeding him leash, feeding him rope.
See the gesture he's making back there?
I didn't like. Yeah, can you? Oh, you can see it right there on the screen. Yeah, you were in there.
You feed leash.
Usually, I know that I'm not.
How do you feed rope, Dylan?
Feed and leash. Feed and rope.
Well, you can go and
2 hands, huh?
We'll rewind that 15 seconds. You can see.
All right. Where did you put Missouri in the AP poll? Because Missouri, baby. Up 6 spots, 215. Kansas.
Yeah, I have
fell to
them,
23.
I have them probably at exactly that. I have Mizzou at 15.
Wow.
Take a look at the grid here, and that's where they are overall.
Yeah, so you know ball. Good for you.
And I had, I've got it in my backpack. I had KU at 22. I want to say, I dropped them 3 spots. They were 19 in my last poll, and I dropped them to 22. And then I moved Mizzou up 2. I had them at 17, had them at 15.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to reward and punish like you want to, because like KU, like after that game in Utah on Saturday, you're like, this team does not deserve to be ranked.
No.
That doesn't look like a ranked team. But then you go and all the teams behind them, a lot of them went 0-2 last week. Some went 1-1 and had equally as bad losses. And you look at those and you compare them, like, okay, can't drop them out of the poll. Same with Mizzou. I wanted them to jump even more, but there are some teams in front of them that did good jobs. So, I mean, anymore this time of year, if you jump, what was Mizzou last week?
21. They
That's a
went up 6
heck of a
spots.
jump.
Well, what's
That's
funny
a
is
huge jump this time of
they
year.
fell 6 spots after losing to Tennessee at
0-2,
Tennessee.
2-0.
And they just got it right back.
Although, I mean,
they did what they were supposed to do.
That's an acceptable 0-2 that week.
Losing by
Lost
4
6
at
or
Tennessee.
7 points at total.
7 total. Losing on a game winner to A&M, who A&M is ranked 7th in the nation.
Yeah,
and then losing by 4 on the road at Tennessee, who's 6th in the nation by 4. So, and then you blew out Georgia and Oklahoma. Take that, Lebo.
There's some teams in my top 25 that I kind of don't like where they are, and I'm trying to kind of weed that out.
Well, the top 10 is kind of
I got Kentucky too high, but I mean they beat Tennessee last week, and then they lost to Texas, I think.
Yeah.
I'm still like, you beat Tennessee. I dropped him 2 spots. If you're going 1-1 and beating Tennessee, where some teams they'll move up going 1-1. I think I had St. John's maybe move up once, just because of all the activity around them.
Yeah.
So, God, it's hard.
So we had this conversation in the first hour, and we had this conversation on Sunday Sound Off last night. This KU team, this is the worst KU team since blank.
We said last year, which is a good answer, I think. But they were injured last year.
They were injured. Their probably best player, Kevin McCullers, was out, and so there's no excuse for injury this year. I mean, we went back and did it, and there's not really a good answer, at least in the Bill Self era. This has the potential, at least, to be the worst, even if they don't have – I think the hard part is I think they're more talented than some of those teams.
Absolutely.
I mean, they were the preseason number 1.
I mean, look at the talent on that 2012 team he had that went to the Final Four. You had like Tyshawn Taylor, with Elijah Johnson, the big man, Thomas Robinson. None of those guys were McDonald's All-Americans. None.
Yeah.
Like a lot of top 100 guys. And he took him to the Final Four. This one is underachieving. It's going in the opposite way. We talked last night. I don't think Bill Self has had a team reach double-digit losses before the postseason. Like last year, they had 11 losses, but there were 9 going into the Big 12 tournament. Lost to Cincinnati and then lost in the NCAA tournament to Gonzaga. This one will probably get there. I mean, because they have what?
There's
5 or 6 games left.
17-8 with 6 games left.
Yeah, I don't see them going 5-1 with those games. I mean, you have Houston on the road, Arizona at home. You have Texas Tech at home. Texas Tech, what are they ranked? 12th, something like that. I mean, they keep shooting up the polls.
They're 9th.
They're 9th. And so at Colorado's no cupcake and a 10 p.m. tip. Central Time. So outside of Oklahoma State at home, the rest of the way, there's no layups. There's no
I think
gimmies
Colorado
for
and Oklahoma State. I mean, at BYU, you would have probably thought if they would have beat Utah but again, it's in a tough environment.
They lost to Utah. They lose at Utah, they can lose at Colorado.
Yeah. It's just a tough final stretch for Kansas.
And then BYU, at BYU.
And we asked, and Dylan and I kind of went back and forth on this a little bit. They'll probably still win one of those big ones. They'll probably win because it's Kansas. They'll win either at Houston or they'll beat Texas Tech or they'll do something. And I said they'll probably end up being a 5 seed is probably where they're at, and it might even be based on the name that they're Kansas. They're going to get a little bit of the benefit of seeding. I don't see them being a 4 anymore. I really
don't either. I think a little bit of that, and then they're really good at scheduling. In November and December, they'll often earn themselves a seed line that's maybe 1 line above
because
they
beat Duke,
be.
right? The Duke win was absolutely massive.
Trying to think.
Beating Michigan State early was massive. They beat North Carolina, who now North Carolina isn't good, but still, that is a good non-con. Losing back-to-back games at Creighton and Missouri, 2 good teams, clearly, obviously. Creighton just fell out of the top 25, but their non-con was very, very good, Kansas was. And that Duke win is going to loom large, and Michigan State, both loom very large. But also they're trending the wrong way, which is interesting for a team, especially a Bill Self team, that's almost the opposite. I feel like we're used to seeing them have a good loss early by 1 or 2 points, to the Duke, and then all of a sudden they just run through the Big 12, and you see them peak at the right time. This has been the opposite, where we're still seeing effort be an issue. They gave up 16 offensive rebounds to Utah.
Could not board.
16. It's just perplexing what we've witnessed, and we all agree that talent is probably there, so it clearly is the personnel. It clearly is, not meshing personnel-wise, but when you keep talking about effort and hustle, and again, when you're seeing 16 offensive rebounds, I'm just left befuddled by what this Bill Self team is, because we're not used to ever seeing this.
No, we're not. I think we're going to see it more and more of these teams that are brand new teams every year. And some of them will gel early. Some of them will gel over the summer, early on in November, and they'll turn out to be a great team like Duke. I mean, what are they playing, 3 freshmen? And I'm sure they have some transfer portal guys in there. And they gelled early. We've seen K-State finally get it together late January, early February. Might be a little too late. And we've seen KU, this new team, all the new guys coming in, have yet to gel, really. They picked up some good wins early on, but 17-8. I mean, this team started number 1 in the country. We all voted them, again, this year, number 1, because they had the great portal class, always a great recruiting class. You have, Hunter Dickinson, this 7'2" center that can hit threes and, be dominant down low at times, but it just, for whatever reason, hasn't come together. I think, like you mentioned, a lot of times it's kind of like an effort game. Like Utah just outworked them. A lot of times that's what rebounds show you. That's who worked harder. A lot of times it was 50-50 balls. Who gets them determines those games. So now there's time to still put it together, but I mean it's running out.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of Key fans are kind of soured on this year's version of the Jayhawks.
Well, it's just one of those situations where I typically, again, Mizzou alum, but I'm almost higher on Kansas basketball more than KU fans are sometimes because they're used to having a lull at some point, and it's always like, oh, this isn't the year. And I'm sitting here going, no, you say this every single year, and you'll figure it out. You'll always turn it around. But again, it's coming so late in the season. I still think they have a lot of talent. If you told me they ended up making the Sweet 16 Elite 8, I could find a path that they made the Elite 8 this year just based on the talent they have. I still think A.J. Storr could have one of those Remy Martin-esque type comebacks where you're sitting here going, okay, yeah, all along we knew it. But Dunga all of a sudden plays 30 minutes a game because KJ Adams, they decide to say, hey, if Bill Self says, you know what, KJ just is not working right now. Mm-hmm. We know you're a hustle guy. We feel like we need to put you out there, but talent-wise, we think Badunga's getting it done. I could see a path, but just as it sits right now, they're having the same issues we've talked about all season long. They're not a great three-point shooting team. They don't get to the free throw line. The margin of error is just dwindling. K-State, on the other hand, they had been one of the hottest teams in all of college basketball. They won 6 straight games. They had a tough one at BYU. I went into that stretch going, if they go 5-2, I still think there's a chance they can make the tournament. That was one of the losses I think they could handle at BYU. But again, wasn't super competitive, losing by 15. Coleman Hawkins brought nothing to the table in that game. Doug McDaniel still doing great things. So you still have a great scorer in Doug, who continues to be hot. But was that the nail in the coffin, in your opinion, for K-State? No, but there's maybe one more nail left. I mean, it's fine to go to BYU and lose. They're a good team. It's a tough late night. There's elevation, all that stuff. Problem is what they did in December and January. That's the problem with that loss. That loss wasn't the problem. It was the earlier ones. And Doug McDaniel after the game said, hey, this kind of humbled us, and this is something, kind of a wake-up call we needed. And I agree with that, but you're running out of time. The margin for error, the wake-up call you needed to wake up in early January, and then you would have this room for error to take a couple more of these losses. I think it's one more regular season loss, and then you better do some damage in Kansas City to get to the NCAA tournament, but it's going to be tough. But back to KU, we see teams every year that are better against teams that are built like them, better against pros. I think this KU team might be better against those teams like North Carolina, like Duke, like Kentucky, that are built with pros. Guys that are going to be in the league a year or two from now, as opposed to guys that are different than them. They might be undersized. They might not be as athletic, but in turn, they do different things on the basketball court that they haven't seen growing up playing against these 5-star guys, AAU, all that stuff, all their career. And yes, they're better basketball players, but there's different ways to get buckets. Yeah. And when they face these teams, I think they run into that. So I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, they show better against Arizona and Houston, right, than they will BYU and Utah, because they're built differently, and a lot of times that can spell kind of doom for
for teams that are athletically gifted and, that the high ceiling and they're all individual great, 4 and 5 star McDonald's All-American type players that A, haven't come together and meshed yet because it's a very new team, and B, just haven't seen different styles of ball.
Yeah. So Dylan and I had KU finishing 4-2. That puts them at what, 20?
I think that is ambitious.
Agreed. It's a very difficult
21
stretch.
and 10.
21-10.
I say 3-3. That Tech game's gonna be tough.
Yeah,
and I mean, so is at BYU, and I think Colorado's not a given, and so I think I'm with you. I think they can knock off a Houston or Arizona.
They get one of
easily.
those. They get one of those.
I don't trust them to win the games they should.
Typically, Kansas wins one they shouldn't, and then loses one they shouldn't as well. That's why the 4-2. I think they'll beat Houston, but then drop like a BYU.
Yeah.
But my point here is, even if they go, let's say 3-3 or 4-2, they're 21-10. They are 20-11. What seed is that? They'll probably end up being a 5. I still have them as a 5.
I think it's 5 when you look at kind of what they've been this calendar year. Once conference play has started, you look at them and like they're a 6 at best.
Yes,
but you taking the whole thing into account, the net rankings. They're really good at scheduling. A lot of times those cupcake games they'll fill the schedule with are teams that win their league.
Yes, like Furman or someone
they'll
like that.
They'll help you with the RPI. They'll help you with all that stuff, and so they're really good at that part. To often be seated, a line, sometimes 2, higher than they should. But that's it. They play the game the right way. So I think it's 5 seed at best for this team right now.
K-State, final 6 games are at Utah, Arizona State, at UCF, Colorado, at Cincinnati, and then at home against Iowa State. If you wanted a good schedule.
It's a great schedule considering the league they're in.
Because you can win a lot of those games, and then the final one is at home too.
Yeah.
So if you're Kansas State, this is your chance. You have done yourself a disservice up to this point, but you're barely alive, and the schedule looks decent for you to try and make a run here.
Are they? What are they? 14-12.
They are 13-12.
13-12.
They are 500 in Big 12 play. So my point is, if they go, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5-1 to finish the year. You're 12-8. No. Yeah, 12-8.
12-8
in Big 12 play.
That'd be hard for somebody to turn that down.
Right? I understand the overall record of 18-13 ain't great. I get that. I know the Big 12, and I talked about it earlier with Dylan, they're down this year a little bit. It's not the same Big 12 it has been in the past, but I think it's kind of hard to miss out. I think you'd have some qualms with the way they finished the year. What are your thoughts here?
My thoughts here, 4-1 to finish out the season, and that would be, 17-13. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, 2-1 at worst in Kansas City. Get you to 19-14. We see those records, slip by, get in every now and then. And, you base it on conference play, how well they're playing, and you hope that that's good enough to get them into the tournament.
Yeah. Again, I always go back to Oklahoma, but that was also when they had Trae Young at 18-14. Yeah. And K-State does not have Trae Young. They don't have that superstar that draws eyes to the team. So we'll see.
Well, I believe they had Beasley that one year, and they were on the bubble and didn't get in. Everybody's like, oh, they got Michael Beasley, and they didn't get in.
Yeah. If they do, they'll probably be an 11 seed and last 4 in. We'll see. But K-State has a lot to do.
A lot of times that. Do they do last 4 in? They do 12 seeds sometimes now, don't they? Or do all the last 4 ins, are they all doing the play-in game?
It typically isn't it normally 2 11 seeds and 2 16 seeds, I thought.
Yeah, but are those always the last 4 at-larges in that play?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. At 11, okay.
I could be wrong, but that's how I remember it in the past.
Yeah, I just remember back in the day that you'd have some 12 and sometimes 13 seeds that were at-larges that would barely get in, but I think you're right. That's how they do it now with the play-in, because your last 4 in, you got to play your way in. Whatever round they call it, it's a play-in.
When it comes to Missouri, again, great week. Not necessarily good teams you beat, teams you're supposed to beat, but you took care of business, and it was not close, especially the second half of that Georgia game.
No bad losses. Name one bad loss.
Their worst loss was probably at Texas.
And a game they had down the stretch, they just didn't score those last few minutes.
Their worst scoring performance by far.
That was that
all
game where
season
Bates
long.
just took off for that monster dunk, and you're like, all right, there you go. They had the lead.
Yep.
And then Texas just dominated the rest of the way.
They scored 53 in that game. They average 82.6 points per game. They're 20th in the nation
But Texas
scoring.
is a good team. They're one of those teams that took some losses early. Otherwise, they might be in the top 25. You see them knocking off teams each and every week in the SEC. It's not a bad loss. It's at Texas, not a bad loss at all.
So you're looking at Missouri. They have 6 games left as well.
19-6.
They are currently sitting at 19-6, fifth in the SEC. They have the tiebreaker over Florida, who is 9-3, right? But they also lose the one to A&M, who is 9-3. So it's going to be interesting to see who can get that double bye, who can get that extra spot up. But yeah, Missouri actually ahead of Tennessee when it comes to SEC seeding. Just goes to show you how good of a turnaround Dennis Gates and the Missouri team has. But 6 games left.
Tell them to me here. What are they?
Alabama.
0-1.
At Arkansas, who's playing better.
Okay, 1-1.
South Carolina at home.
2-1.
At Vandy, who's playing some pretty damn good ball.
I feel like I quickly said at Arkansas. I said they go 1-1 between at Arkansas and at Vandy.
And then
at
Oklahoma.
So 3-2.
And then you finish with Kentucky at home.
Oh, Kentucky's not. I mean, they're like KU, right? They're just. I mean, they could beat anybody and they could lose anybody. I'll go. The way they've played this season.
Yeah.
If they continue that, that's a 4-2 stretch there.
4-2 stretch to end the season would be great.
Great. 23-8.
I think 3-3 is for sure in the realm of possibilities. It's funny. It's the emotional hedge, the Mizzou and me. There's a lot of 50-50 games and just SEC on the road. I know they just took care of business at Georgia, Georgia's kind of in the same boat as Arkansas and Vandy and Oklahoma.
Oklahoma's been right. They were the last team to lose a game, right?
Yeah, they were 13-0.
So.
Again, SEC's just been a bear, so I'm giving a lot of credit. So I think 3-3, you're for sure taking. If you go 3-3, that it puts you at 11-7 in conference play, 22-9 overall. I still think a 5 seed if you go 3-3. I've just been so impressed with this turnaround by Missouri and what Dennis Gates has done. What stands out to you though when you watch Missouri play? Again, to me, they're a chameleon. They've done it so many different ways. If you want to play physical, they can play physical with Josh Gray and Mark Mitchell. If you want to go a little more finesse, you have Mark Mitchell at the 5 and Trent Pierce at the 4, which is what they did against Georgia.
I wonder if part of that is the reason to their success and that, like, you got a game plan for 13 dudes to come out there. I wonder if, like, seriously, just like the tangible quality of time these guys have in only a 2 or a 3 day turnaround to get ready for Mizzou, and you had to have those extra pages to the scouting report, and it just kind of takes away from your overall preparation because you don't know who's going to be thrown out there against you. I think he somehow used that to his advantage when, like, every other coach in America wants to say, like, we want to get down to like 7 or 8 in our rotation, right?
KU, they
every year
they run 7 or 8 dudes out there, and
when guys that sitting 9, 10, 11 on the bench are guys that could start for almost every other team in the country.
Yeah.
But he's not afraid to sit him down or redshirt him or whatever. Whereas Gates is like, yeah, all you guys can play. Well, you know what? This will cruise. This is going to be your game. Grill, this is going to be your game. Have we had an Aiden Shaw game yet? I would really like for him to take off.
That. He always takes off when he's in the game. I mean, he just flies, but
yes, he jumps very high.
Very high. And you have Perkins, who, I mean, you just have Warwick if you want Warwick in there to go one-on-one. I mean,
forget about guys like that. Warwick, I'm like, oh yeah, he plays on the team.
And then all of a sudden against A&M, he's the guy on the field playing like the entire second half. It's just it is giving me a little bit of cause sometimes. Is this also because Dennis doesn't know who he likes? Or is it all situational where at least you have the pieces? Because they do have some questions sometimes, like in that game against A&M down the stretch. I wouldn't have had Warwick in to guard Wade Taylor. That seems like a Perkins, an Anthony Robinson, or even like a Marcus Allen if you wanted to, like get you some size. Against Kansas down the stretch, that was T.O. Barrett in the game. Like at times you'll see T.O. Barrett, like he has all these dudes, but I don't know if he always knows how to use them. Which again,
he does.
He does because they're 19-6. But I just wonder when you're playing, in the NCAA tournament, and you don't have another game to fall back on.
Keep it up because, like I was saying earlier, if there's anything to that, mean, you have 2 days to prepare for these games, between rounds or at the same site.
I'm trying not to get too excited, Mick, okay? We're not used to this.
First Final Four, you should book it.
You think book it?
First ever Mizzou Final Four.
Mick Schaefer is saying Missouri Final Four.
I just wonder, though, say they get to 12 wins in conference play this year. Has there ever been a 12-game turnaround in SEC history, Big 12 history, major college basketball history? First of all, we're not that far away from only playing 16 games in conference play, right? And now it's 20, so it gives you some more room for that. But they won 0 games last year, and now they are very much in line for a double bye.
What was Baylor?
In the greatest year in the history of SEC basketball overall in that conference.
Baylor, when they had the whole issue and Scott Drew got there, I wonder if what that turnaround was.
12 games is a lot.
I know, but that's my point. Is I can only think of
because everybody's going to win 3 or 4 every year, and if you do that, you're not going to next year win 16 or 17 because, like I said, only in recent years have they played that many games. 12, that turnaround, you mentioned it. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure if I put my head to it, I can think of other candidates. But, I mean, Dennis Gates for Coach of the Year, like national.
Oh,
has to be.
I don't know how he would
has
not
to be towards the top.
And, again, this is a fun stat I just found before we go to break here. Very noticeable if you watch the game. Missouri versus Georgia, I watched with all my guys. We had a little diaper shower. Is that what you call it?
Where
what?
are you going with this?
When you buy diapers.
Sounds like something weird you're going to do.
No, this is not a bit. It's a real thing.
I'm worried.
When you buy diapers for your boy who's having a kid, what do you call that?
Your friend who's having a kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like it used to be like a baby shower, like the girls would go and do that, or like you'd all do that. But now,
so you guys had a baby shower for dudes?
Yeah, it was great. We watched Mizzou. This is like the third one I've done this year. There's like so much.
Third dude baby shower?
Yeah, I've done this year. I have another one. I have a fourth dude baby shower coming up too. I think it's just an excuse to drink beers and just like, have fun.
Or buy diapers.
And buy diapers, which they're expensive. Did you know diapers are expensive, Mick?
Yeah, no duh.
Yeah. Crazy. Now I see why
I've
they
lived
do it.
life.
Yeah, well,
I know all
I don't
this.
know. I don't have a kid yet.
Yeah.
But
everything's expensive with a kid.
It was great. We did a putt off, drank a lot of beers. Got wings and fries, watched college basketball all day long, and all we had to do was bring a pack of diapers over.
Or not. Lots of American males get together and watch sports without, buying diapers.
It's dudes supporting dudes.
Oh, God.
What?
I don't know. Just the way you say
Mick.
that. Maybe the way you say everything. I don't know.
So help your friends out. The point remains, I was trying to make here, Mick.
Okay, yeah.
Before you got me sidetracked and made me feel weird.
You watched them beat Georgia.
Watch it beat Georgia. We're all sitting there, and we kept talking about they had 4 dunks in a row. And it was the fast break points. Missouri outscored Georgia 19-0 on fast break points.
Love it.
This team is fast. They're fun. They get a ton of steals. They're unselfish. They finish at the rim. They get to the free throw line perpetually, it feels like. I've just been so impressed, again, with the turnaround and why I think they have a good chance to, as Mick says, book your
Final
ticket
Four.
to
Listen,
the Final Four.
I mean, do you have everybody, every year you get the NCAA tournament, it's always those small schools that have a kid that just go off from three-point range. Caleb Grill seems like that guy for a major college team with a high seed that could just go off in the tournament because he's played for 4 years, right? Or longer for Iowa State. I think he was at UNLV for a second. He's played in these big games. It's not this a big form. I mean, the guy can just find it, and he's cocky enough to just go off. And so that when I think of who could be like a darling this March, I think of Caleb Grill because he's used to the spotlight, and when he gets into it, the guy's a dead eye.
Caleb Grill is Mick's darling. We will take a break, come back, learned funniest best. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer. Again, shout out to Jack Johnson and Easton down there in Surprise, because our live coverage of Royal Spring Training is brought to you by WeatherTech Renovations, Kansas Lottery, Randy Curnow, Buick GMC, and CBD American Shaman. Learned, funniest, best. All right, I'll go first with the learned. I learned that the NBA All-Star Games were this past weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, I just...
You're an NBA guy.
I love
what
the NBA.
happened?
This is my point. It's 2 scoops of ass. It's horrible. No one cares. I don't care. Fix it. And I learned they have a great idea to fix it.
There were four teams, right?
Yeah, dumb. Absurd. I know how to fix it, and they actually have the idea. USA versus the world. So you would have Team USA.
Oh, so we're going to lose?
Probably, because you'll have Giannis and Jokic and Luka and Wembanyama. Oh my gosh, this is a horrible idea. But it'd be fun. Well, it'd be fun because I think you would actually see players try at least a little bit. I'm not saying a lot of bit, but at least a little bit. Because there is something to playing, USA versus I'm French. I don't know. Like, there's something to that. Like, they may just roll over. Who knows? I think there'd be something fun to that. USA versus
We see that
world.
in kind of in MLS play. A lot of times they'll take the MLS All-Stars and take on a team from the Premier League or something like that.
I just think it's fun. I think it's cool. So I'm team. I learned that that's a new idea, and I learned that that's a great idea.
How about
they should?
How about for the dunk contest? You have to average more than 10 points a game in the NBA to be in it.
Because Mac McClung was awesome. What are you talking about?
He was awesome, and then I had heard of Stephen Castle. The other 3 were just scrubs.
I get it, but Mac McClung is awesome. So
he tries, but there's plenty of
Derek
guys
Jones
in the NBA.
was great too, but he was more of an in-game dunker. Derek Jones now plays, but he kind of got his fame
in
from
the
dunk contest.
I'm just saying the other 3 this time were 3 scoops of ass.
Oh wow, give him the 3, huh?
I mean, 2 of those guys didn't even get their first dunks in. And it wasn't even close. It was Matulis Bazulis or whatever his name is. Plays for the Bulls. He played at Sunrise Christian in Wichita. And then Stephen Castle from the Spurs. And then Andre Jackson Jr.
Wait,
from
Andre Jackson's son?
Yeah.
Probably.
So played at UConn, but yeah. So there you go. That was them. Yeah, he was great. The Kia dunk was awesome.
By the way, people are like, that's the same as Blake Griffin. Didn't you do that? I'm like, no. Blake went over the hood of the car.
Yes.
Mac McClung jumped over the tallest part of the car.
Reverse slam, pick up the ball in the air, and then he catches the car on the way down with his left foot and wipes out, which I think made it even better. And he got up and celebrated. It was pretty sweet.
And then he did the kiss where he catches the ball, brings it down, kisses it on the rim, brings it down, then yams it.
Yeah.
Do you know how long you have to be in the air for?
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, long time.
No, he's really good. But has he even played an NBA game yet?
Who cares?
I do. That's dumb.
I get
These
it.
guys, there's guys that can fly just as high as him or higher. Go do a dunk, you pansies. It's not really about the dunk. It's about the accoutrements and the stuff
yes,
leading up to it.
He has played in the NBA this year. One game, averaged 1 rebound and 2 assists.
He averaged that many.
Yeah, one game.
I bet he did average that
one,
much.
One rebound and 2 assists a game. He's played in 5 NBA games in his career. Pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
Give the guy a chance.
Give him a chance. He was like an MVP in the G League, right? How are you MVP in the G League and you haven't played in the NBA yet?
How do you get fired on your day off? I don't know. Mick, what'd you learn?
I learned that Sabrina Carpenter is the niece of Bart Simpson. Sabrina Carpenter's aunt, Nancy Cartwright, I believe is her name, is the voice of Bart Simpson. Sabrina Carpenter,
Wow.
the singer, right? She was on Girl Meets World.
So this is
yeah, that's it. I had always heard the voice of Bart was a girl.
Uh-huh.
And that's her aunt.
Wow.
She had a funny bit last night in the SNL 50th celebration. Her and Paul Simon came out.
Did they find 50 ways or
what?
50 ways to leave your lover.
Oh, was that her?
Him.
Okay.
Come on.
Anyway, so he comes out and he's like, this is a song I performed on Saturday Night Live, like October, whatever, 1976. And she turned to the camera. She's like, I wasn't born yet. And then she goes, neither were my parents. I looked it up. That was not true. Her parents had been born. And that's when I found out that Bart Simpson was her aunt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you with the deep dive.
It's all about learning stuff.
Mick Schaefer, big Sabrina Carpenter guy. Dylan, what'd you learn?
I like espresso.
So I learned the origin via Draymond Green of Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul's plans to sabotage the skills challenge. So here is Draymond Green at the press junket.
But what I will say is Wemby walked around the court asking everybody, like, so, because they say, make 1 or 3 attempts. And Wemby said, oh, so I could just get all 3 of them up there. And he's like, yeah. So he asked. Now, he may not have asked the right people. But I will say, in Wemby's defense, he did ask a lot of people. I heard him ask maybe 5 or 6 people, like, so you sure I could just throw the ball? So
I thought that might be a Chris Paul decision instead of a Wemby decision.
it was actually a Wemby decision. It was Wemby decision.
That's incredible.
So yeah, so Chris Paul was taking a lot of shrapnel last night, or I guess Saturday night, for that because he was just smiling the entire time as boos rained down after the skills challenge, and they were informed that they were actually disqualified from the skills challenge because you actually have to make at least 1 shot to qualify.
We'll leave it to Chris Paul to follow Wembanyama when he thinks that someone's cheating. Chris Paul just followed along. He's like, oh, that looks like an advantage. I'm going to do that. Makes sense. Funniest, Mick.
I don't think we've talked about this on the radio yet. If we have, stop me or don't. This was actually last Monday, so it doesn't really count, but I'm counting it. The funniest, I was on our drive back from New Orleans to Kansas City, and it was in the middle of Arkansas, in Hardy, Arkansas. And I've actually talked about this with a couple of people who have seen it, and they know. There's a daycare in Hardy, Arkansas. And its name, do you want to know its name?
I would love to know the name.
Hugs and Tugs.
What?
Hugs in, like, and we're going to abbreviate it. Tugs.
What could the Tugs possibly allude to?
I don't know, but it's a real place. You can look it up. It doesn't have great reviews. I don't know if the people dropping their kids off there expected something different.
I don't know if I can look that up.
Work computer
is a real place. And the funniest part was I was on the phone with you guys at the time doing Learn Funniest Best. And at the time in the front seat was Mackenzie Nelson and Chase Lucas. And I see them looking at this sign and they're pointing. So at that exact time, they were learning of their funniest of the trip. And so that's it. There's a daycare called that there.
What could the Tugs possibly what was the thought process? No, my point is, what was the thought process behind that?
Well, you can tug without, tugging.
Dylan, what's your
tug
funniest?
on somebody's shirt? Right?
Well,
come
why
over
would
here
they-
for my hugs. Come over here for your hug.
That makes it sound worse. Let's move on. Dylan.
Just recently, I guess the Bengals are reportedly planning to franchise tag T. Higgins again. And that's
Again?
funny to me because, again, the guy gets franchise tagged because the Bengals are the cheapest franchise in the NFL, hands down.
I'm sure that'll go over well. I'm
Very
sure
well.
he'll love that.
And I do like all the fan bases that thought they were going to get T. Higgins right now just crying, and especially Patriots fans, because we don't want T. Higgins going to the Patriots. We do not need the Patriots getting better this offseason.
My funniest is comparing Anthony Rendon, who's making $245 million, to Ted Williams. Now, you might be saying, Sterling, why are you comparing him to Ted Williams? Well, because in Anthony Rendon's first 5 years for the Angels. He's played in 257 games, 5 years. He's also injured right now, might miss the entire this year, too.
It's not many.
Not many. Ted Williams, from 1942 to 1946, played in 300 games. Do you know what he was doing for 3 of those years? Do you know what's going on from 42 to 46?
Fighting a war.
He was in World War II for military service. He missed 3 full seasons, 43, 44, and 45.
Still played more.
He played 43 more games.
In this shorter schedule, too.
43 more games in a shorter schedule. Why 3 years he was in World War II.
God.
And it looks like Rendon's going to miss, again, the majority of this year as well. So,
are we sure Anthony's not off fighting like the Ukraine conflict or something like that?
I have not got... You know what? These are the questions. We should have asked this.
Well, according to Anthony last year, he'd rather be doing anything else than playing baseball. So
he is...
Any of those options might be
Maybe
what
war's
he's doing.
one of those things.
He actually might. So, yeah, that was my funniest. Just an incredible... incredible numbers right there. All right, so best. We will go with Dylan.
My best is the Four Nations tournament or hockey thing going on right now.
Bringing
us all back to the reality that hockey is back, and it is your contact sport with a lot of speed to replace football until that comes back.
You don't have to worry about those guys not having passion for their team or their country or
No.
anything like that, do you? No.
And this could have been my funniest, but I was bringing this up to bring up the Big Walt quote, who is the father of the Tkachuk boys, one being Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, both getting in fights in their Four Nations games, and he referred to them as two lunatics. I don't know what to tell you when he was asked about why they're fighting. So that's hockey for you, and that's why you should enjoy hockey.
Best for me, the Royals have signed GM J.J. Piccolo to a contract extension through 2030 with a club option for 2031. And then also Matt Catraro got his 2026 option picked up. No surprise, but again, I think that extension for J.J. Piccolo was much deserved, much earned. And I love the team, the club option.
Yeah.
That's nice. Nice little touch there.
Yeah, well done.
Mick, your best.
My best was, if you watched the SNL 50 thing last night, it was really funny for the most part. Bill Murray got there, and as Steve Martin said, the only way they knew Bill Murray would show up was by not inviting him. And he did he ranked all the Weekend Update anchors of all time right there, and it was hilarious. Maybe the funniest thing. The funniest guy in that room full of funniest people was Bill Murray.
Love that. We'll take a break, come back. The Zone. We'll wrap up here. Sports Radio 810 and WHB. We'll be the one. We'll start early.
Tomorrow you get kicked out 1:30.
It just keeps going.
Wednesday, maybe noon.
Maybe
Yeah.
if we make it to noon on Wednesday, I feel like we've done a good job. Jason
Yes.
back on Thursday. You like this better, though, don't you, Mick? You like it better with me, right?
Yeah, as far as you know, whenever I'm just talking to you, it's just us two in the room. Yeah, I'll
that's
say
all.
that.
That's all we need
Absolutely.
to know.
Yeah.
And by the way, we looked up that rub and tugs. They're expanding.
It's hug and tugs, buddy.
Hugs and
Oh,
tugs.
my God.
Whoa! They expanded to Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I bet it's a separate company. I don't think they expanded.
Yeah.
But
Maybe.
just
It's
they tug
possible.
at the heartstrings. That's what they're talking
They
about.
tug
at the heartstrings.
at the heartstrings.
Yes, that's the tugging going on.
We're out. See you tomorrow.